Hello, everyone, and welcome to a post-season for Reindeer Games deep-ish dive with Taylor Hale.
What's up,
Taylor, how you doing?
everybody? I'm good. Happy holidays. I'm feeling holly and jolly, and I'm no longer bruised from the games. I've been able to sleep, which has been great. Like
Mm,
those lucky MFers that got eliminated from the game that had all the rest in the world, and I didn't leave until 2:30 in the morning on finale. So I'm glad to finally be caught up on a regular schedule again. Ready for the holidays.
yes. So for those of you that didn't check it out, first of all, stop what you're doing. Watch Reindeer Games. 6 episodes. Very fun. And what we're going to be doing here is going through these 6 episodes, running through the experience from Taylor's perspective. Now, we don't have live feeds, so normally a deep dive with me is sort of a journey that we both take together as we sort of like talk through everything. But I am much more reliant on you here, Taylor, because you were there and I was here watching an edited version of it. So,
Yeah, this is new for me. I remember being on 24 and being like, I can't wait to meet up with that guy that watches all the live feeds and just hear what he has to say about everything. And those deep dives are so interesting because people usually come to you saying, "Well, let me tell you about my game," and they have so much more to learn from you. And now I'm being that quintessential Big Brother player. Well, you didn't see everything, so let me tell you about my game.
well, I mean, in this instance, that is actually the case. I think as Big Brother fans, we're very used to feeling like we know a lot. But there's a lot we I assume don't know about reindeer games and some of the things that went down. I mean, we had Derek X come on the podcast, and he had a whole host of things to say about lines he was saying that they didn't even include. So already they're messing with the timeline.
He was a big ad libber. I think he was working real hard for that SAG card, but we got a tight ship to run. Only so many minutes, so he can have his other shot. Have him come back and actually play the game and see what he has to say then.
So first of all, what was it like to because your only experience with a show like this was Big Brother, where you're there and then you're out, and when you're out, it's over, and people
Right.
are talking about it, but you're not watching it with everyone. This time around, you filmed it ahead of time. You had an idea of what it might have been, what it might be in your head, and then you watched it play out, and you watched everyone watching and watched their reactions to the watching. What was that like?
Oh, it was crazy. I think outside of Cam, yeah, I think outside of Cam, I'm the only person that has only done one show in any capacity like this. So, I mean, thinking about what the 24 experience was like, I'm still told stories to this day of how much of a phenomenon my name experience, everything was while I was in there. I'm going to apologize now if you're listening. I've got my puppy in my arms and he might be knocking my mic around a little bit. But coming out and having this brand new experience with a show that is brand new, that basically we had to put the hype train on our own backs for, right? Like the
Mm.
marketing was unique because it was a 2-week show, only 6 episodes. It's during December where you don't have this pretty standard time slot and understand like this is not a time frame where people are looking to tune into Big Brother or whatever this game is going to be. And Big Brother fans, let's be very honest here, weren't all that excited about it because it's not at its core Big Brother. So how do you sell this show that nobody really understands with a cast that people don't even know about until they're all gone? But now the experience of being outside, feeling responsible for marketing this on our own, talking about the experience, trying not to spoil the show while it's happening, it was very difficult for me. I watch these shows in real time. I watch Big Brother in real time or play Big Brother in real time. And so to get on TikTok live with Cody or X or even Tiff, um, and try to pretend like I was still in a position of, oh, well, maybe I was eliminated after this episode, so I can't tell anything. Like it was a very difficult space to be in where I was around so many pros and vets who are very used to doing that. So I really leaned on a lot of the other people to kind of help me through it. But the tweeting through it was so much fun, you guys. Oh my God. I had so much fun just acting a fool. So you didn't have to care. It was silly and stupid. And I didn't have to care as much as I didn't have to give it as much weight or gravitas as other TV shows.
Yeah. Well, I know that Survivor has sort of been through its own journey of how they handle players during the season. And Jeff has come to a place where he's just like, nope, they're not allowed to do anything.
Oh.
Because it might be too spoiler or for whatever reason, he just doesn't like the players talking. I assume that like there was at least a little bit of guidance in terms of like, don't spoil the show. But it seemed like they kind of just let you do whatever.
Oh yeah, completely. It was it's brand new for the Big Brother entire team. So as soon as we wrapped up, you saw us in the finale all saying we wish you a Merry Christmas. Cameras cut. Everybody who was behind the cameras right there in front of us, they go, please, 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 please do not spoil this. It's only 2 weeks. Like keep your mouth shut. Like, please don't spoil this. This is a new experience for us. And they were very excited about the product we created too. They were like I saw no shade to them. I saw dollar signs in their eyes. They were like, "What you just did was so good. You all have made something so amazing. Please do not spoil it." And I'm like, "No, don't worry. Like we agree because I think we all really understood how special and exciting and unique what we did was. And it was just really cool for all of us to have this new thing and all of us to have such a good experience with it. So yeah, the only guidance was, please, for the love of God, don't ruin this for us. And we were like, don't worry, it won't be us. Yeah, talk to some other people, but as far as cast goes, we won't be the ones ruining it. I will say I was a little frustrated with some of the promos though. Some of the promos totally gave away what happened in different episodes. Like
Mhm,
I think a huge twist or surprise to a lot of people is the fact that Nicole beat X. And that was
mhm.
something that we were all so excited to see play out. And then the day before the episode airs, these promos come out and they show Nicole watching Frankie and I go head to head. So I'm like, y'all just spoiled one of the biggest parts of the episode. So I don't know. Maybe that's on Big Brother to think about in the future with reindeer games. But when it came to spoiling, I think we all just had a lot of responsibility because we loved this whole experience so much.
Mhm. Yeah, it was an interesting sort of season for, again, like, Big Brother fans because, spoilers in the Big Brother world is usually just live feeds,
Right.
which is, like, kind of like, there's 2 different communities. You're either with the live feeds or you're not there. But in this case, there were people that normally post, quote, unquote, "spoilers," who were like, "Should I post spoilers?" Like, if I have them, I don't know, and then it seemed like, from my perspective, I do the streams and, we try to do, like, predictions of what's gonna happen, and so if there's spoilers, you can't really do the predictions. But it felt like from what I was
Oh,
hearing
interesting.
that a lot of the spoilers that people were seeing ended up being wrong, so I think a lot of it was, like, fake out there, and so, it
Oh.
sort of an interesting, experience from that end, but yeah, it was an interesting, it was interesting to watch all of the players interact and, like, be making comments, and people were always like, "Oh, Taylor just said something on TikTok, so I think I know what happens."
And it was so hard. Like I really tried to preface everything by saying, well, hypothetically, like what it could I be gone the day after and how did I move afterwards? But now we know I made it to the very last episode. So a majority of the cast, once they got eliminated, they were on vacation in LA. Okay. They got to hang out in the
Mhm,
hotel. They could call Uber, go into LA, hang out with each other, do whatever they wanted. Meanwhile, the four of us were still in the mix of everything, fighting for our lives every day. So we get out and we're like, oh, y'all were getting dinner every night. Y'all were hanging out every night. Meanwhile, I'm nursing bruises on my body, getting ready to fend Christmas for Mr. Santa Claus, who I still got beef with. But it's just like this very crazy, unique experience that I still almost don't have words for because the Big Brother sequester experience is so intense and so tight-lipped. It's so abnormal that you're used to it being normal. So freedom in this space feels like a very foreign concept.
mhm. Yeah, and, we talked about the marketing for the show being a little spoilery at times. I also just in general felt like the way that they pitched the show and the way that they were advertising the show, like, didn't really do it justice.
Mhm.
And I think that there were a lot of, like, hardcore Big Brother fans that would normally, like, tune in for anything. I mean, the people who hate the show the most are the people who are consuming the most of it most of the time. But even a lot of those people are like, "I'm not watching that." Like, why would I watch that? And then even with, like, there was a wave of like, "No, guys, it's actually good." I think a lot of people were still just kinda tuned out. Um,
Yeah.
and I think part of that was, again, like, the way that they pitched it as like, "Hey, it's all comps," especially following Big Brother 25, where, like, the comps were
Yeah.
kind of the problem. Um, and, and I just feel like I don't know, I feel like there was a better way to pitch this, even, like, the commercials where it's like, "Hey, you have these massive, like, Big Brother legends," as you're
Mhm.
calling them, and they're competing, like, you know make it sound like it's Big Brother. You know, because
Yeah.
there were a lot of Big Brother components to this that I think a lot of people who enjoy Big Brother would or can enjoy.
Mhm.
And I feel like, I don't think anybody expected that.
No, I didn't expect it. Oh my god. Look, when it was pitched to me, it was, "Hey, we're doing this, 6-day, um 6 days, it's all comps, there's no voting, no jury," and so you got me, okay, queen of whipping votes and jury management. I'm like, "And y'all want me to do this? Like, I don't know if this is not for me. Is this a setup? Am I being set up for failure here?" But yeah, it was pitched as, "It's just gonna be, like, fun, it's still Big Brother competitions, but it's gonna be a great cast, and we'd really love to have you." And I'm just thinking, "Okay, well, it's 6 days, the check was kinda cute to show up, and for $100,000, and there is a 2nd place prize." I was like, "Okay, I'll give it a go, and it's not Big Brother, so if I completely flop, whatever, it's a one-time holiday thing." And I get in the game, and it's like the lights turn red and the gates closed, and it's like, "Game on." And we're all looking around like, "What the hell did we get into? We thought it was gonna be fun." So there's this intensity about not even being in the Big Brother house, but the game that we walked into. There was so much more of a social dynamic built into the actual competitions that none of us anticipated. And then, of course, there's different interpersonal relationships going into the game, between seasons or friendships or legacy in different capacities. So it was a lot more complex than what are you eating? Benji? Benji? Okay, as long as he's not chewing somebody's gift, we're good. Um, yeah, it was just a lot more complex and social and more of that Big Brother that we look for that makes Big Brother exciting than we ended up getting. So I think the marketing could have done so much more than what we ended up having. But even with that being said, I don't know if even people on the production team knew how complex this game was going to be. I think it's just a testament to the people that played the game.
Mhm.
You get Big Brother gamers in there and we start moving, and you can twist and flip the dynamics of the rules that are put in front of you to make something even more interesting. So I'm just, I think now they understand what the product is and what it can be. And I think next year it'll be a really, really cool push. But this year was just like, let's throw something at the wall and see how it goes. Oh my God, it's awesome.
I do think from my perspective, there were, like, a couple of key components that made this work. One was obviously the cast. Like, entertaining, played the game hard,
Yeah.
dramatic, like, it just worked on every level there. 2 was that most of the time, there was a heavy social strategic component to
Mhm.
everything, and then 3, well, I'd say and maybe also, like, the length was great. It was, like, a nice short bite-sized thing. But then also, something that I think was the most surprising of all of this was, the competitions for 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 the most part were all equitable. They were all, competitions that were winnable by everyone, and I think a good example of that is that as you go into that, like, final 4, you all basically have a similar track record in terms of comp wins, at least.
Yeah.
There's no one person that's won 10 comps and then like 3 of you won none. And so there's a wide variety of winners throughout the season, and most of the competitions have either multiple components to them, meaning like, okay, yes, there is like a physical part here, but there's also a really tough puzzle, or there's, a social element that will sort of act as the equalizer,
Right.
or they're just, equal to begin with, or they're just a very specific one-off skill that, like, oh, somebody might be really good at this thing, but that does not mean that they're going to be good at anything else that
Exactly.
is playing here. Um, I've heard last night. I heard that Josh was saying that was there a new comp person who was in charge or something. You know
I
this?
wish I could get behind this. I have no idea. There's a lot of the behind the scenes stuff that happened is from conversations that I just wasn't in the room for because I
Mm,
was still playing the game. But from what I was told, it's the same team. So
mhm,
maybe they brought somebody new on, maybe someone who has been in the system, got a promotion, who knows? But it wouldn't shock me if somebody did step up and say, "Hey, why don't we switch things up just a little bit?" Because I mean, we saw it right there. So I can't specifically say it was fan pressure that made them do that. And I knowing the people directly involved in the game, like these are smart people that create the game, the environment that we're in. They know when things work and when things don't work. And I know that there is a commitment and a willingness, I'll say a willingness to change things to make them more fair or better for everyone who participates. Just because I think you're in like a large media conglomerate, I think it can be a little difficult to enact that change sometimes.
mhm.
Um, Gotta love corporate America. But I mean, we saw it. Like, I feel like these little passion projects that happened in TV are opportunities for people in production to explore what does or doesn't work. Benji, come here. What are you eating? I'm sorry.
For
Sorry.
the listeners, the puppy is being a
The puppy
puppy.
has found something that seems like a toy, and I'm okay with him chewing this up. So I'm like, don't destroy somebody else's property, but this one, that's okay. We're back. Thanks for being patient with me. Um, yeah, like I was saying, I think these large media conglomerates can be slower to change, but that doesn't mean it's
Mhm,
impossible to change things. And when you have these smaller projects, like if you look around at a lot of different entities outside of like a Netflix, new concepts are not being greenlit. They're only being greenlit if they're under an existing brand already. So if the production team behind Big Brother wanted to start a new TV show, it would not get
mhm.
picked up.
Yeah.
But because it's called Big Brother Reindeer Games, okay, you have an existing legacy brand that we can try something out with. People are going to come through with this built in audience. Let's see how it goes. And it was a hit as far as, ratings go for the time slot for something brand new on network TV. It did surprisingly well. So I know we're back to comps and things that can change to be more equitable, but it was just an absolute delight and surprise to see what can happen when you try something new. And it's exciting also to see like there is a willingness to do it. You just need the opportunity. And when you had the opportunity, we ended up with an all female final two because the comps were equitable.
Yeah, for I believe in the US for the first time since BB13, which was like,
Yeah.
what,
Was that
2011,
Jordan?
2012?
Yeah. I was in high
That was
school.
Portion and Rachel.
Oh man. And again, it's not even main Big Brother. It's a offshoot.
Yeah. That tends to be the case that, OTT and celebrity have, the women who are winning it, but, they haven't brought the same kind of, and I mean, that's again just like very, very like this isn't a podcast about what the show needs to change, but like as just an example of how small changes lead to vastly different results. Um,
Mhm.
but uh, but okay, so you're contacted about the show. Um, what is your process? What are you thinking? Did you have a strategy coming in? Did you know what you were gonna do?
Well, I started by trying to assume who would be there, which is the dumbest thing that you could do, but it worked out for me. So I said,
Mhm,
okay, if we've got all this time laser stuff, I'm thinking Brittany, Danielle, Frankie. Like those are my three shoe-ins. And I was told it would be 9 or 10 people. So I go, okay, you got the three, you got me. And then I said, okay, well, it sounds like maybe they're trying to do majority winners. And I know about this 50% BIPOC rule that's been
mhm.
instated. So I go, you have to have your firsts. So that's me, Xavier, Josh Martinez. I had a I really thought Casey would be there.
Yeah,
Just
I would have thought
yeah.
so. She seemed like a shoo-in for it, but yeah.
Yeah, a competition-based show, a short game, Big Brother. She dominates the challenge. I'm like, there's no way Casey's not going to be there. She wasn't, but I had her on my short list. I had that spot between Casey and Rachel Riley. I thought
Mhm.
one of them would be in that
That
spot.
was another surprising one, yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, I was pretty surprised about that too. And then I thought Derek and Cody, but then Derek has another TV show he's doing now. So I figured, okay, Cody's out of contract. Cody's got to be there. And I think that was basically my short list for everyone that I thought would be there. So working
Mhm,
within those parameters, I started going back and being like, okay, how can I understand these people and their games? What do I know about them? Did I do a real deep dive and real insight and research on each of them? No, I didn't have time for all of that. But I did want to be at least more familiar so I didn't show up and make stupid decisions and walk away with people saying, "Didn't you see their season? How could you do that, Taylor?" So, which I'm still fighting right now. So we will get to that, best believe. But I wanted to feel prepared because again, I'm thinking this is a competition based show. I have no idea about
mhm.
social strategy. And when you think Taylor Hale, you think social games, speeches, jury votes. And from the jump, I'm told there's none of that. So I'm like, okay, I can hold my own when it comes to comps, but the most I can really do is puzzles on an app to train for this. So I downloaded a
Mhm,
couple of apps. I started practicing puzzles, but that was really the most. I wasn't in the gym training for reindeer games or doing anything crazy. I was just trying to get familiar with what I thought the landscape would be. And I would say I had maybe like a month to prepare ish. But even then, you don't know what you're preparing for. With Big
yeah.
Brother, I could binge watch a whole index of the history of the game and learn from different YouTube video journalists, all these different things. The next best thing I had to prep for reindeer games was guessing the cast, familiarizing myself with the game of the cast. And then I watched Ethanimal, is that how you say it? And
Uh,
Peridium on YouTube.
mhm.
So I watched both of their videos on hacks and like challenges and how people won different things from different seasons. So from there, I was like, this is the best I got. I don't know what they're going to throw at us, but at least I'm practicing puzzles, games, and trying to learn the history of competitions. So at least when I walk in and I see a competition, I can go, okay, this is the best way to attack it, approach it. And then a lot of the comps were just totally different.
Yeah, and I mean,
So
I can
how do
only
you feel
imagine
that?
that. Yeah, like, I think that, even if you are thinking about, like, "Okay, who might be there? Who could I work with?" It's like, if you're anticipating that it's just gonna be all comps, like, what does it even matter, you know?
What does it matter? And I'm so lucky that there is so much social element built into the comps. But what if there wasn't? Then
Yeah.
what? I'm just at the mercy of Frankie? Like, and I just have to align with Frankie and hope that he sees value in my game. When you think about traditional Big Brother and the traditional games, it's like, what shot do I really have? I hope there's an obstacle course. We all know I'm good at that, but it was all a shot in the dark.
How did you feel about, like, relationships with these people? Like, okay, so you walk in the door, you see who's there. Like, how do you
Yes.
feel about, like, your position, with these people? If there is any social component or even, like, competitively, like, what was your assessment of the cast for you from your perspective?
I think my favorite, so I was the first to walk in, and I'm starting to believe in that first in curse now. Like, we were so close, so close. We won't get to it. So I was the first in, and then Cody came in right after me, and I was like, Kill Bill locked in, like that is my target game on, baby. Let's go. Because with Cody, I always say if you give him an inch, he'll take a mile and run his way all the way to the end. So I'm locked and loaded. I'm thinking Cody plays these games. He does this. I'm going to knock him out of here quickly. And the more that I talked to Cody, the more I realized, and this isn't shade, I've said it to his face. I was like, you just don't have the fire in you anymore. Like, you just, these games, like, it's just not in you anymore. And I don't want to say the man cracked, but he really felt the weight of playing these games and lying and manipulation. Like, it's just not in his blood. It's not in his energy to play these games like he used to. And I kept saying in the DR over and over as the game went on, I was like, was I smart to target Cody so hard so fast, or should I have focused on Frankie first? Like, the assumptions that I had about these people and their games was just almost instantly flipped. I will say I knew with Danielle needs to have her Jason in the game.
Mhm,
And I just knew that I wasn't her Jason. And so
mhm,
while I was working with her, I was looking around trying to figure out who is her Jason. Who is her Jason? Who is her Jason? Who is her Jason? And after a while, it became more clear that it was Britney. And that's when I realized, okay, I see how the cards are starting to fall in the house. But I think that first connection that I really made outside of X, like that's a really strong established relationship and bond that I have. That's my brother. Like the X is my
mhm,
brother. He always looks out for me. And he did a lot in the game. But Josh was someone that I met for the very first time walking in the house, and we just instantly bonded. Like, you see us that day one, we're locked in. We hadn't even had a real conversation. It was just like, I've messed with you heavy. I don't know why, but we're locked in. This is it. And I will say, in the beginning, I thought that Josh would be like a big, strong guy that I could use as another soldier in the game. And then I was like, you might have to be a goat that I take to the end. So it was cool. And then, Nicole, Brittany, I've met Nicole before. It was my first time meeting Brittany, but both of them, all the women in the house really had this secret understanding that we are going to work with the women. Frankie told all of us his biggest regret on his season was working with the big guys and he wanted to work with the women. So we were very intentional about not being so public about it.
mhm.
But it's a very small house. It's a very short game. And even when you're not in the house, sorry, Santa's lodge, even when you're not in the lodge and we were having our lunch breaks, you still see who hangs out with each other and who feels most comfortable with each other. So we're Big Brother players. We never stop gaming. We never stop analyzing what's happening. But I think as far as first impressions go, it was really cool to have all of these people that I've watched or heard about or learned about right there in front of me and trying to figure out, okay, where do the pieces fall on this chessboard? And is it even a chessboard? Because it's not Big Brother like I'm used to.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think from my perspective, like, looking at that cast, it was like, okay, yeah, and I think you're right about Cody to a degree, because like, I think what we saw in the traitors for Cody
Mm.
was him kind of just, like, bearing the weight of having to lie to
Yeah.
people that he was becoming friends with and, like, having to, like, being pushed by Cirie to, like, murder his allies, was,
Yeah.
like, really
And just
getting
just
to
to
him,
cut
and,
you
like,
for
by
a
the
second,
time.
I told him
Mhm,
that in the house, and this is what was so cool about not having live feeds. We could talk about anything. We sang, we talked about different TV shows, we talked about how much people got paid for other TV shows, and I looked him in his eyes and I said, "I watched you on The Traitors, a game called The Traitors, in which you were a traitor, and you were upset that you had to betray people?" I was like, "What is wrong with you?" And he's like, "I just can't do it. I just can't do it anymore." I said, "You won Big Brother. What is wrong with you?"
I think that I think the reindeer games, for as much as, like, it's tough to really translate in terms of, like, okay, what does it really mean for a Big Brother game or, like, your skill at Big Brother to play reindeer games, but, like, or same with traders, but it's like, I think that watching Cody on Traders, watching him here on Reindeer Games, it just further sort of helps, illuminate a full spectrum, image of who he is as a player,
Yeah.
and, like, the kind of image I have now is, like, yeah, on 16, he was the loyal guy. That his whole reputation, one of the reasons why he did well in All Stars, he had a reputation for being so loyal. He essentially turned down 500K for friendship. And then he comes back and like he has to correct that wrong, and he gets a
Right.
reputation for betraying pretty much everyone, including of course Nicole, winning that game. But like that, I think there is something to the idea that is not really who Cody naturally is. He had to sort of force himself into that role for that season, which does not necessarily mean he's not a dangerous player, because
Right.
if anything, it makes him more dangerous because he is so trustworthy. Like,
He's able to
because
do
you
it.
do
Yeah.
talk to him and you do feel like this is a good guy. I like him.
Yeah. And like that's generally how I feel. Like I love Cody. He and I get along so well. I think he's hilarious. He's a good person. Um, but yeah, you don't know which Cody you're I think nowadays you know which Cody you're gonna get. But when you're playing any of these other games, you don't know if you're getting the trustworthy loyal guy or the most dangerous player that's among you. So I think I was right to target him ultimately, but it's interesting having these ultimate profiles of people, maybe seeing them play other games or only seeing them play Big Brother, and then being in the same space as them in this new game and trying to figure out what version of you am I going to get? What version of myself am I going to give? And how does that all play out in this game that we're going to go through together?
Yeah, like, it felt to me like maybe it would have been if he was in killer mode, but like the options that Cody would have seemed to have from my perspective in that cast between Frankie, the rocky relationship with Nicole, but obviously if you're Nicole, worst case scenario, you're just gonna at least pretend to be in with Cody for a little while, which seemed to be what happened, and then she actually fell in at some point, from the edit at least. And even beyond that, like he has connections to Josh through the challenge, through his brother. Like that was,
Yep.
I think, a rocky relationship, but I think they've mended things, and I think he knows Josh. Um, and I think he knows like Casey, and Casey's good with Josh from I think
Man,
from what I know. And then like he's caught the podcast now, so he's like done interviews with Xavier and with Cameron and like been very friendly with both of them. And so it would have felt to me like he's got a lot of options here, if he wants, on top of the fact that he is a great competitor. Frankie's a great competitor. And some of these other people that we're talking about are potentially great competitors. So I think,
looking like doomsday for me when you lay it out like that. Man.
So yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and I think that very early on, I think that one of the main things here was, um, you know, Frankie. Just to jump ahead a little bit, but like Frankie
Yeah.
wins that first uh, Jingle Bell Brawl, and ends up sending Cameron and Xavier into the showdown, and that to me was like that's why all of what I just talked about couldn't happen, because essentially, whether it was Frankie's decision or Cody's decision or they agreed, whatever, like the two of them essentially cut off their options with both Xavier and Cam in one move, and ended up having to play a game with more of the women. And I assume that a lot of that came from the fact that Frankie wanted to work with the women, and so he felt like it was an easier path to gun for some of the bigger guys. And what you talked about, like he'd rather work with the women than some of the guys,
Mhm.
even though like that's what Cody did well in 16 and 22, was like gather all of the big comp people and then work your way down,
Run
which ends
through.
up being his downfall in episode 2. But it was very interesting to me, and I'm curious about uh, all of all of that positioning. So, so you go in, you see all these people, you want to target Cody because he's dangerous. Were there any other were you looking at Frankie too? Like, were there any other people you were wary of?
So I'd done an escape room with Frankie before. So I knew how good he was, but I thought that Frankie was one of my allies in the game. Like I was actually intentionally staying away from Frankie because I didn't want people putting the two of us together as a duo.
Mm,
So I'm like, I got Frankie in my back pocket. That's my boy. We're rocking through this. We're gonna go far together. And then I noticed how good he was playing the game. I'm pretty sure it was episode 2 where I'm like, "And now my next target's Frankie."
Yep.
Or it was ep 2 or 3 because 2 is when Cody goes out and as Cody's out the door, I'm like, "All right,
Mm.
Frankie, I got you on my radar now." Um, yeah, it was I think I also got a lot of flack for telling Frankie outright, "Okay, I
Yes.
wanna keep X around for a little bit," because 1, I didn't know how close Frankie and Cody were, and 2, even if they are close, I'm thinking, "You're telling me you wanna work with the women. You're telling me your biggest regret is working specifically with this person on his season. So we're in this together, right? Right?" And you just when it goes to big targets, keeping X around was always my plan. I mean, Frankie and I had the same thing. We wanted one person that was going to be a shield or do the hard, dirty work for us while we did more social aspects of the game. And I think like Frankie and I both played really great, really strong games. Frankie was just in a position where he had to win more, and my social game protected me from that more. But as soon as I understood how strong and almost unbeatable he was, I mean, Xavier was afraid of him. So once I
Mhm.
clocked that, I was like, Frankie has got to be the next target. And he was my target until I took him out myself because no one else could.
Yeah. Okay, so yeah, let's talk through that first episode. You get the naughty or nice challenge. Brittany wins, and she's interviewing people for who she's gonna give like the disadvantage to. And there's a funny moment where she's like, "Wait, X won? He's a winner?" I assume you
I
didn't, because you weren't part of that conversation. I assume that was
no.
the first time you saw that when you
That was
watched
the
the
first time I
episode.
saw it on the show. I almost had to pause the show because it was so funny to me. I mean, like, that is genuinely one of the I went live with Tiffany. Oh, I know you're not doing this. I got a puppy, you guys. Benji, sit. Okay. Watch him act a fool now. So that was my first time seeing it, and I'm dying on the floor laughing because X is my friend, and I
Mhm,
know how genuinely hilarious Xavier is. He is one of the funniest people I've ever met in my life. He's ridiculous and kooky and funny and crazy and says out of pocket stuff all the time. But I understand him being the first black person to win a regular. This dog's gonna drive me crazy. I'm so sorry. Him being the first black person to win a regular season of Big Brother. I'm gonna pause this for a second. I'm sorry.
yeah, yeah.
But so X is one of like the closest people, the people I'm closest to from this whole reality space. That's like my brother. And I know how ridiculous and crazy and like out of pocket and funny he can be. If you want proof of that, just watch Derek and Cody's podcast the night that I won Big Brother. Like that's when I first got a taste of his personality. So knowing how much personality that man has, but also understanding the weight that he carries, being the first
Mhm,
black person and a black man to have won Big Brother and to enter the space again, having that legacy, like there's that aspect of it, the kind of meta version of all of this. I call it the meta game. And then there's the actual game where, okay, you don't want to say too much. Is it about relationship building that's going to keep you safe in this game specifically? Is it about gaming really hard that's going to keep you safe in this game of reindeer games specifically? You don't know until you play it. And unless you really watch these other seasons and keep in touch with these people, you don't always know how they're going to receive or react to the way that you're gaming with them.
mhm.
So watching Brittany be so shocked and bewildered that Xavier could have possibly won a season of Big Brother is hilarious to me because she's like, The man gives nothing but air." He won? But like, I get it. But I think also, and I say this not to call my friend boring, but when you think of the list of Big Brother winners, a lot of them are not the biggest characters of their season. They're people that
Mm,
played either quieter games or played games where you don't remember them as a character, but just a winner because sometimes that's what it takes to win Big Brother. You don't, being a character, being a personality doesn't always hand you that 750K check. I
yeah.
think it would be good for a lot of people to understand that.
It seemed like, uh, you know coming on this show for you, it may be in contrast to X, it seemed like you really just, like, opened up. You were just like, because your experience in Big Brother 24 obviously was, like, this very specific thing, and it really sort of limited what you
Yeah.
were able to do, and this, from my perspective, looked like you just being like, "I'm just gonna have all of the fun that I wanted to have on my original
Yes.
season and not care."
Yes, I why would I care? Like, look, let me be cocky for a little bit. I got this. I got the 800K. I got 800K in one season. I I have nothing left to prove. I went against almost every obstacle on my season. I overcame it all. I have amazing friendships from my time on Big Brother. Like, and my life has been. I know that's right, Benji. I got my puppy from Big Brother. Like, I have amazing things that I walked away from season 24 with. So going into reindeer games, I was thinking, well, I'm sure there are people that are worried about protecting or defending their legacy, and I don't have to do that. And that's so cool. And I can be stupid and kooky and wacky and make really good cutthroat game decisions or make really stupid game decisions, and it won't impact anything for me. And then I walked into the Big Brother house and the game bot turned on. And I was like, "Oh, no, I'm here. I signed the contract and I'm going to play this game. But I'm not going to
Mhm,
play this game on defense mode. I'm going to play the most offensive game that I get to play because I can actually play that way this time. And I have people in this house that understand that I am just a fun-loving, confident, wacky person. There are other people with wacky personalities in here. I don't have to continuously prove that I am a good person. Everyone in here just knows that I am. And so
mhm,
I got to play a game with players that wanted to game and have fun and let loose. Like, it was just so freeing to have that experience with the amazing cast that I did. And the comps were just so much fun. The entire experience was so fun. And like I said, I walked in feeling like I didn't have anything to prove to anybody, but I walked away learning so much more about my abilities in these games too. And I've been trying to figure out what to get myself for Christmas, and I feel like that was the best Christmas gift I could have gotten.
oh, there you go. Okay, so, from your perspective, that first round, was it like, was it each day was an episode, or was
Every day
that
was an episode.
okay. So that first day, what was your view on how your sort of like alliance structure was set up? Because we saw very
Uh,
quickly there was like the Josh X Danielle U thing. There was the women thing. You said you also had something with Frankie, maybe that was loosely connected through the women, or maybe that you
Mhm.
felt like you had it on the side, or maybe in addition to the women. Like, was that it, or did you feel like you had more as well?
Oh, no, I feel like that was it. Everything
Yeah.
else, I mean, we're only excluding Cam and Cody at that point.
Yes.
Like, so it was pretty much a perfect, setup for me, which again, foreign experience. Like, how am I this well connected and positioned day one? And I'm not gonna lie, I kept saying, I cannot mirror this. I was like, I cannot be this well set up and fumble this opportunity. Like, I need to damage control and maintain as much as I can because when you are in this good this early, it can all come crumbling down very quickly. So I felt good. I mean, Cam, the whole house, we were just like, all right, go back, go get some sleep, Cam. Go, thanks for
Mhm.
showing up, collect a check, go home. And then getting Cody out was pretty awesome because that meant that the women were going strong. That meant that my alliance with X and Danielle and Josh was hanging on strong, even though we kind of risked him a little bit to get that job done. And people actually don't know this, but we did eventually start an all winners alliance. It got busted pretty quickly. But we did at least try to lean into that and see what can work out for this. But I think as far as that alliance structure goes, it all ended up benefiting the women. And that was always the goal from the jump.
Okay, so basically you feel like you've got something with every person except for Cody and Cam.
Mhm.
Cam doesn't really matter because he's a pariah at the moment.
Yeah.
And that leaves Cody, who is your target, which makes a lot of sense. But what I thought was interesting was that by the end of this episode slash day, Cody's in the diary room like, man, she really got me. Like I thought, like I thought we were good. I thought I really
Yeah.
underestimated her.
I put a lot of work in on Cody because I knew that we probably had the most distant relationship out of everybody. And I also addressed with him, like I said, the metagame. He got a lot of heat for saying that, like a speech is the only, and I'm dwindling this down, but Sharon Tharp did an interview with Cody, and there's a piece of that interview that was clipped where he's kind of rolling his eyes and being like, I guess, a good speech can win you the whole thing, but did you really play Big Brother? So there was internet tension created
Mm,
between my fans and his fans, but I never had any beef or strife for Cody. I always just respected him as a game player and was not trying to catch that smoke in the Big Brother house. So I just wanted to dead that whole situation early. And we started talking about his experiences on his shows, our experiences outside of playing these games. I'd met him before at the Traders Reunion in New York, actually. I just happened to be in New York at the time. So we had a little bit of history, but not enough to build a real game relationship. And I knew that as soon as I got in that house, that was a person I really had to break.
mhm,
What is interesting about the edited show, and I get it, like Cody was only there for 2 days, so you gotta condense it. But Cody actually had no idea that I was putting um, letters in his mailbox. And that's
mm,
for two reasons. Number one, the actual letters that we had, they had your name on one side and they had nothing else on the other side. So when I was stuffing letters in Cody's box, I very intentionally put them in there so that he would not be able to see my name if he was just looking from the outside in. Now, if he
mhm,
picked it up and like looked at every letter to see who was putting letters in his box, he could see my name. But Cody had no idea until way later. Actually, the next day, he asked me, "Hey, who did you see putting letters in my box?" He had no idea. And I told him straight up. I was like, "Oh, well, Cam was full, so you were my overflow. Sorry." And
mhm.
it shook him to the core. He was like, "I had no idea." He's like, "Were you targeting me?" I was like, "No. I just had to go somewhere else. Sorry." We're cool though, right? We're good. And that's when he started having more conversations with Frankie, being like, "So what's up with Taylor? What's going on there?" And that's when I really started to get on his radar. And all of this
Mhm,
happened before the Naughty or Nice challenge.
mhm.
So it was really interesting. And then later on in the edit, it looks like he immediately clocks that I'm putting letters in his box. He had no idea until the next day.
Yeah. Yeah, I mean, I think you're right, like, it makes sense from an editing perspective to, like, build up the tension to for the next episode to be like,
Oh
"Oh,
yeah.
he's on to Taylor," but yeah, I mean, that sequence of events makes sense as well, and I did notice that because I went back and I watched the challenges to try to figure out what placement everyone got, and I was noticing that some of them had the names on the outside, and I was like, "Why how come some of them don't?" Um
Yep. Yep. As soon as I saw that, I was like, this is a great way to not make enemies unless you're really
Mhm,
digging. And at the end of that challenge, I went through every single letter in my box, just to see who was in there. So I had all the names ready just in case I needed it, but I was chilling. Social game,
yeah.
baby.
So yeah, I mean, I mean, I like that strategy. Obviously, it doesn't last very long in terms of like disarming Cody. But I mean, it worked well enough, right? Like you can see a world where like Cody in that first round is worried about you because of internet tension, and
Mhm.
um we saw Britney and Nicole have to sort of have this conversation about what Britney said
Yeah.
about her online. And this, I imagine this is like a fairly not big thing, but something that like has to be talked about a lot within the alumni community. People who are watching the show and commenting on it, then having to sort of explain themselves to people after they come out of the show, or if they go
Yeah.
on to a show again together. Um, and I think that like I'm sure everyone handles it differently, but my sort of understanding of it is that like most people kind of get it. They're kind of like especially if you're just a show watcher, you're like, yeah, you said a thing about me. You weren't a fan of me, but like you watched the show. Like Like, that's
Right.
like, it's kind of the purpose of the show is that you're not supposed to be fans of everybody.
Exactly.
You're supposed to be rooting against some people and for some people, and so, if you said one thing about one person, it doesn't necessarily mean that you won't get along if you're in person talking to them. And
Right.
so, like,
And
I think a lot of the fans don't get that part of it, like the in-person part and how different that is.
yeah, I always say we all signed the same contract. Like every single one of us signed the exact same contract. So I won't say we all knew what we were getting into, but we all showed up to be here at the same place at the same time to do the same thing. So unless it gets like disgustingly nasty and personal, I'm not going to be worried about somebody watching the show, having played the show before and saying, "Oh, that was a bad move," and you threw your game in the tank or whatever. Like, I'm not worried about that because I made the best decision that I could have in that moment with the information I had. And you, as a viewer, have so much more information than me, and you're critiquing me online about a decision I made. That's fine. It's
Mhm.
okay for people to disagree with my game style or to advocate for another game style. That's totally cool. That does not mean that I'm going to walk into a game with them and say, "Hey, you said this about me and you critiqued my game style, or maybe you said something kind of shady. And so I'm targeting you." That doesn't make any sense. What makes sense is doing what is advantageous for my game given the layout in front of me. Like, I don't ever see myself playing a game where I'm going to let personal animosity or strife overcome my desire for winning 750 to $1 million. Like, that doesn't make any sense to me.
Definitely. Okay, uh, so Brittany, I assume you weren't super concerned that Brittany would put, like, a disadvantage on you,
No.
um, in that spot. Like, how quickly did you feel comfortable with your alliances? Like, obviously, if you make alliances, it's another thing to, like, be like, "Okay, I'm actually in these alliances."
Mhm.
When did you feel like, "Okay, these are actually kinda locked in?"
So, I never felt super locked in with the alliance with X, Josh, and Danielle because of Danielle.
Yeah.
It was, and I was right, again, watching the edit. It's so cool looking back and being like, "I knew it, I was right." But I basically, the second that we and I'm pretty sure I made the edit, the second that we lock in that alliance, I immediately say, if there's a competition where we have to go after each other, like we all have to pile on one of another, I'm not touching any of you. And
Mhm.
Danielle kind of said, "Yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes." And I was like, "I okay, all right." And basically, that whole alliance building conversation ended with Danielle and X saying, "Well, if I'm ever in trouble, I'm just gonna ask that you all let me know." And that's when I was
Mhm.
like, "Okay, so this is just an alliance of a heads up," or I don't wanna say convenience because we all did what was best for our games. And I was like, "This alliance is not going to be making meetings, planning on who to throw down, things like that. This is gonna be an alliance of I got your back. Don't have me out here looking stupid."
Mhm.
So once I realized that, I was like, "Okay, well, I will use this to my advantage when it is advantageous for me to do so. But am I going to tell everybody in this alliance every single thing in the game? Absolutely not." And so I started getting wary of Danielle. I was just always very cautious of Danielle because she plays a good game. She plays a
Mhm.
very, very good game. And when it came to locking in with the girls, I don't think we ever had a real in-person all 4 conversation unless, like, 2 guys were in the diary room and we all just happened to be in the kitchen and somebody was in the bathroom, right?
Mhm.
And so we would all kind of just be like, "We good? We good? Okay," and then disperse. But you would see factions within that. I mean, Nicole and Britney were together so much of the time. And when you see 2 people spending so much time together, that's when you think, "How close am I with them?" And I knew that they were using Frankie as their shield, and I was clearly using
Mhm.
X as my shield. So I'm like, how are we gonna make this work? How's it gonna play out?" And, there's even a point when I told Danielle and X to stop spending so much time together and talking and whispering
Mhm.
because I told them that people were going to see them as a duo, and that same day Britney came right up to me and said, "So when did that start happening?" And that's when we see Britney really start to move and say, "I got to split this up. I got to do the right moves to get this going." And when the hamster wheel came around, that was the perfect opportunity because she was thrown to her death. She came back and was explicitly told who X was trying to protect. She had enough ammo to go ahead and make that move for herself, even with me volunteering.
Yeah. I assume that the two, like, bigger alliances slash groups that you were in didn't know about the other, except for except for you and Danielle essentially knew that the women had a thing and that you had a thing with X and Josh.
Yeah.
But X and Josh
Yeah,
didn't
not
know about
explicitly.
Brittany and Nicole didn't know about X and Josh.
No, 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 no. I know Frankie kept going to the guys and being like, "See, they're working together, so we gotta have each other's backs." And that was smart of Frankie to do. Like Frankie kept getting thrown down, X kept getting thrown down. So why work against each other when you could team up? So Frankie's backup option was to go to the guys and be like, "Hey, just so you know, they're clearly working together." But Josh and X are like, "That's what you think. We got him in our back pocket." So it was fun. I mean, did they somewhat know about each other? Could you have looked around and see who was hanging out with each other? Sure. But were Brittany and Nicole and I mean Danielle was with us. Were Brittany and Nicole saying, "Look, Danielle and Taylor and X and Josh have an alliance?" No, no.
Yeah. So Brittany gives the disadvantage to Cody. And the edit definitely makes it seem like you were the main driver of this. Is that how you felt?
I think the easiest narrative is to paint it that way, but I don't want to take away any agency and decision making from Brittany. Like
Mhm.
it would be foolish. Like Brittany has a mind of her own. Nicole has a mind of her own. I think for all the women, it was the best thing for Cody to have this disadvantage. Like we didn't know what the game would be. We definitely, as a house, felt like the naughty or nice advantage disadvantage would be bullshit every time after seeing a
Mhm.
one letter advantage or disadvantage. And we kept laughing because every time they would read the scroll, it would be more inflammatory language. This is a life changing advantage that you'll get. We were like, yeah, okay, And what is it? What is it? 30-second event. Okay, all right, thanks. Like we knew that it wouldn't be that significant for us. Um, I really do I do take the credit for protecting Xavier in that moment and really pushing Cody forward. And I think that probably gave Brittany the agency to say, okay, the house is firmly in the corner of targeting Cody before Xavier. So, like, I'll take credit for that, but I don't want to take away from anybody else's thought process or agency in the game, too. Like, I'm not the only gamer that was there, and I'm not the person that made the decision, even though I pushed really hard for it.
Yeah, I mean, it must have felt good though because the one person you're not aligned with, the the one person you're targeting is now publicly because the thing about the disadvantage in some ways, especially that early on from my perspective, is not just that it's a disadvantage, but it's also a public declaration of,
Yes.
like, it's like being nominated, you know? Like, it's like being nominated, but without like, as much danger. But it still is like,
Mhm.
"Oh, there's something bad about you, that somebody thinks that you're bad and that you need to be punished because 'cause you're naughty." And
You
so
are so naughty.
so it definitely, I think, sort of, it puts a player like Cody on the back foot, which is kind of where you want a player like Cody to be, because you don't
Nope,
want him to be on the front foot. Um,
nope.
but then Frankie wins, and that means that Cody will be safe. But this is, in my opinion, I think Frankie's, and I felt this way at the time, and maybe you'll disagree with me, but I really just felt like, um, you know, the thing about Cam, we saw him in season 25. He's not exactly the most reliable ally. He is a very, and I mean this to his credit, he's a very self-interested player, and if he has
Yes,
any chance to do something that will benefit him over his allies, I think he'll take it, including,
which
like,
is
ratting
how
them
you should
out or,
play
like,
these
whatever.
games.
Yeah.
Everyone play the game self-interestedly, please.
Right. Um So, and he's somebody that's always gonna be thinking about, like, what can I do to advance my position in the game? And again, I mean that to his credit, but it also means that, like, he was not the most reliable ally on his season, and so, yeah, the idea of, like, picking Cam up is maybe not, like, the most appealing, but at the same time, like, nobody else wants to work with him. So like, in a game where there's 9 people, it's pretty quick. It felt to me like Frankie putting in Cam was a little bit of a waste. And maybe the idea is hopefully Cam beats X, and in that case, Frankie's in a better position. But it still kind of burns Cam theoretically and pushes Cam to maybe go somewhere else. Like Brittany, who could have given him the disadvantage, and I think smartly did not. So this to me was, I think, Frankie's best opportunity to take a more targeted shot. But he does go with this sort of house consensus Cam. How did so you obviously were like, okay, Cam's a given, and this is when you
Right.
make the pitch to Frankie. What about this is, I think, at least from my perspective, probably like at least in the edit, your biggest slip up
Sure.
of the season, the show, the 6 days.
Yeah.
And and so, I've, heard you a little bit now, like, okay, you felt like you had something with Frankie. He was saying he wanted to go against the guys, and it seems like maybe you just kind of fell into that, not realizing just how tight he was with Cody. And did you realize at any point that, oh, he might have told Cody about this?
Oh, totally. Yeah, I had no idea how tight, Cody and Frankie were. Like, no idea. It's again, it's one of those things where had I really paid attention to the season and had I not really run with the initial, my regret is working with the boys and I'm with the girls, I would have been a lot more savvy. But I think when you believe you are working closely with someone, that just opens up more candor and transparency. And I'll
Mhm.
admit, like, that was totally my mistake. I was a lot more trusting than I should have been, especially that early in the game, but I thought we had a different game relationship. So, what Cody and I could kind of naturally gravitate towards each other. Like, it was a very natural, gravity. Like, I would kick it with him. We would hang out when there was downtime in the house, which was, like 45 minutes of downtime in the house. Um, but then there was more distance. And then there was a very intentional, direct walk over and sit next to me for a conversation. And that's when I knew this guy is gaming me now. And I'm like, why would he be gaming me? Where would that be coming from? And you see it in the next episode when Cody wins the advantage. I'm like, I have stupidly said this man's name out loud multiple times. Obviously, I'm about to be his target.
Mhm.
Like I really was leaning into the house consensus. Like, okay, Cam's gone. Now we're all getting Cody, right? Oh, and now Cody gets an advantage, and I'm the one who has been pushing the entire house to go for this guy. I know this target's coming right back on me. So you can, again, it's the experience that I had in 24. Like, when the vibe shifts, when the energy shifts, when you're
Mhm.
having a conversation that is more friendly, getting to know you, and one that is intentionally trying to get information out of you. And once I felt that with Cody, I just pieced it back to where did this direct target that I put on him come from? Okay, I understand that relationship is not the game relationship I thought it was. Time to recalibrate my targets.
Mhm. Well, and I think it speaks to the sort of larger strategy that you had, which was this very aggressive gameplay of like,
Yeah,
I'm coming in and I'm not gonna play it safe and be like, "Oh, I'm not sure about my target." Like, you really pushed for your agenda early, and I do like that, especially in a season this quick because,
mhm,
we saw that it was effective. Again, like, you know, helped get the disadvantage on Cody right away. The target does land on Cody, and in your success, it's sort of like a high risk, high reward kind of thing, right?
totally.
If you go for it and you lose, then, like, you might be out early, but if you succeed, now all of a sudden you're actually set up really well to make a deep run.
Yeah.
And to make the in my opinion, to make the risk early it's counterintuitive, I think, from like a risk averse like mindset because you want to make it far. You want to like take it easy at first, see how things go, make it a little far, and then maybe halfway through you're like, okay, now I can make my move. But because most people are going to do that, the people who take the risk early, in my opinion, usually will end up finding the most success. And that's
Mhm.
where I feel like you going hard for what you wanted early to set yourself up was a better strategy than, in my opinion, Frankie's. It's kind of like, well, I'll go with the house consensus, see how things go. Now, obviously, it doesn't matter for Frankie because he ends up winning a bunch, but like,
Yeah.
he does lose his ally Cody, and I think that. So was that like was your mindset intentionally like I'm just gonna go for it. I'm just gonna go hard early and then see where things go. And then I guess the bigger question is like how concerned were you about being caught given that you were so vocal and aggressive so early on?
I think it was all about the way that you frame it, right? So, why is Cody my target? Because I'm protecting the women in this game. Nicole, I know that, and I didn't know the real history here, but I was like, Nicole, I know that you've been done dirty by him. And like, yeah, he could be telling you that he wants to work with you and it might be beneficial, but come on. Come on. Is that really going to work? Brittany, have you ever played with Cody? Have you seen all these shows that he's done before? Frankie, you're telling me you want to work with the girls and not the big guys. This is the big guy that you work closest with. I'm looking at the other side of the house. I'm like, X, who do you think you're going to keep getting thrown against? It's kind of my fault. I'm sorry, X. But I'm like, who do you think people are going to be trying to pair you up with to try to get rid of? Like, it is advantageous for you to get rid of him. For everybody in the house, there was an argument to make Cody not only my target, but everybody's target. And so I'm glad that I was pushing that because if my goal is to have an all female or majority female, because in a perfect world, I actually would have liked to have had Josh and 3 women in the reindeer games. I didn't think it'd be possible to have all 4 women in the reindeer games. I knew someone was gonna go before we got there. Um, but I would have liked that to be the final 4. And if I want that to be the landscape, I have to think about how it makes sense for everybody else to get there too. And if I'm going to be protecting the women and arguably I'll say the clumsiest man in the game, the argument has to be made to get rid of this specific person that will create a domino effect to lead us all there. And so I'm glad that I pushed really hard and I was intentional about that because if I didn't do that, we see in the next episode Cody forms this super team to directly combat what my strategy was and have a final four that would have been best for him and the vision that he wanted. So I I think I was a little like, yeah, I could have been cleaner in the execution for sure in different aspects. But I'm glad that I was bullish in my approach from the beginning because it's a short game. And if I didn't do it then, and also on a personal note, I played so slow and soft on 24. This is a unique opportunity where I could be bullish and not be
Mhm.
punished as a human being for doing it. So
Yeah,
I'm like, so why not do that? Like I see the clear path. There's a game that I finally get to play. Why not just play it?
yeah. Um, and it is like, okay, you're being presented obviously from your perspective, Frankie is putting in basically either X or like Josh or Cody.
Yeah.
And in the world where he
They
is
didn't show this.
pushable to put in Cody, like that's massive.
Why wouldn't I push that? But also, they didn't show us in the conversation. This is the part where I'm like, live feeds would have been so nice for this moment.
Mhm.
I did end up throwing X under the bus in that same conversation because I realized in that conversation, okay, Cody's off limits for him. I've already said I don't want X to go in. But if Josh, and this is what I told him, I said, between X and Josh, if you ultimately do not want Cameron to come back, Josh is not the person that you put up against him. I was like, if that is someone that you still want, like if you want Josh in the house, he said yes. I said, okay, well, Josh is not someone that you put up against Cameron. And so, without saying the words, I was like, it's got to be X that goes in because I trust that he'll come back. I don't like it, but if we're talking about people that we both want to keep in the house right now, you do not put Josh down there, not yet.
Who did you prefer between Josh and X? go down if you had the choice? I mean, not like
X.
yeah.
X, are you kidding me? Like I said, my ultimate goal was Josh and 3 women in the end game. So for me, it made more sense to use social game to protect, Josh. Once I started learning more of his competitive history, I was like, "Okay, we're gonna social game my boy to the end, baby. We are gonna social game him there if we can."
Right. And I mean, I think, like, there was a point in the show where I realized, like, oh, her biggest priority should just be getting Josh as far as possible,
Yeah.
because Josh, like, and I really liked him on this show, especially, but, like, he was perfect for you because he was loyal to you, offering to take disadvantages for you. He was also a bigger target than you, but he was also beatable by you. So
Yes.
it's like through every metric, like, he was the perfect ally for this game.
It was
Um,
amazing, and frankly, I mean, everything was going perfectly as far as, like, keeping Josh in my pocket until he was put in a position where I could not do anything to protect him. Like, the
mhm,
decision was not something that I had the ability or even time to try to affect with Frankie, because as soon as we both won, and I know we're jumping all over the place for the listeners, but as soon as Frankie and I both won the advantage or the decision that we had to make, we went in separate places and had different conversations, and we both got cut off, and they told us to come down and make our choices. So it's the time constraints on the game made it really, really difficult.
yeah. So I think it, like, you know, if because I think the one of the things that I want to do through this podcast, from my own perspective at least, is to, like, really
Yeah.
hone down exactly, like, what was happening and like, what was maybe the right call, maybe what was the wrong call. And I think that, like, the way that I'm seeing it, yes, probably a bit sloppy in terms of revealing you're going after Cody, but I do like the general strategy of pushing hard. I'd rather you be pushing hard and going for it, than and get caught than not push at all.
Mhm.
And then the other thing from that episode is that it's like, oh, well, she revealed how close she is to X. But I think, what we're getting at here is that you preferred X over Josh to go in. So that was, like, not a bad thing. And also, it's something that never came up again in the show, at least. Because, it was like, "Oh, she gave it away. She gave cards shown. They're all gonna know now," except, it never comes up again. In fact, the next time we hear about X being close to somebody, it's Danielle. So,
Yeah.
and she gets targeted for being close to X, not you. So yeah, I don't think this was like, I don't think this, again, we're parsing the edit, or I'm trying to, at least. And this to me was one of those moments where it's like, ooh, for the edit, but in reality, it didn't seem to mean much.
Yeah, and that's again because I was keenly aware of how small the house was, how many people were there, and how much time you spend with one person and how that can look to other people. And I also knew that Danielle and I were essentially jockeying for the same position in the house. Like, if we're being
Mhm.
completely frank here, like we were
You're
both
both
set up
in that
very
really the best spot, essentially. We're
yeah.
between 2 things, yeah.
Yeah, and really only one person would be able to come out of it unscathed, and that's exactly what happened. So once I saw that Danielle recognized how much time I was spending with X, I pulled back, Danielle stepped in, and that's when Danielle really got caught because of how close she was to Britney ultimately. When you
Mhm,
have another person that is your number 1 in the game, like Danielle and Britney were, and they did really well going undetected for a while, but when you have that person and you see that person getting closer to someone else without actively telling you it is intentional, that number one is going to start asking questions and digging around, and the game can flip upside down on you real quick. So I kind of lucked out. I don't even, it was intentional for me to take space from X. And I think I also lucked out by seeing Danielle step into the space and intentionally letting the cards fall as they were.
yeah, I mean, it was kind of like, if there was, like, a target on that space, you were like, "Let me just, Homer Simpson walk into the
Scoots.
a second." And then Danielle was like, "Oh, look at this open, unoccupied space," and she stepped in and just got, like, obliterated.
Yeah. And I hated it. I mean, I
Yeah.
hated not being able to openly do you know how epic it would have been if Danielle and I could have gone real deep together? But I just don't see
Mhm.
a configuration in this game where we could have run to the end together without being detected, called out, targeted, anything like that. So, yeah, unfortunately, it just had to be one or the other, and I stepped out of that target right when she was willing to step into it.
Yeah. So, X wins over Cameron. Uh, Next up, day 2. We talked about it a little bit already. Cody's talking to you. You're like, "Oh, crap." Then he wins the Naughty and Nice challenge.
My face
And
cracked. I said, "Congratulations! Yay! Love this."
yes. And he gives you the disadvantage. But
Shocking,
obviously
shocking a majority of the house.
oh,
The,
really? I didn't see it.
oh, yeah, yeah. You know, a lot of the faces that we make on the couch look a little overacted because the campiness of the show and everything. But literally, when Cody said my name, he only had 4 people to choose from. Everybody expected him to give Naughty or Nice to Britney. And when he gave it to me, like you said, it's a public declaration of
Mhm,
a target or you've been naughty and I'm reprimanding you for this. So to give that to me when I wasn't the one that gave him the disadvantage the day before, it was very shocking. And I think it opened up a lot of eyes to people that, hey, people are playing this game and game is happening in places where you're not seeing it happen. Because in what world would it make sense for Cody to give me a disadvantage when no one sees that he and I are really going toe to toe with one another right now? So I remember Danielle and Josh both stood up and they pulled me to the side right after that ceremony. And they said, "Did you see that coming, Taylor? Like, we had no idea that was coming." And I was like, "Guys, I've talked to both of you about targeting him. Like, it just got back to him." And I was like, like it's fine. Someone on our team is going to have to take this disadvantage. It's me. Let's knock it out the park."
mhm. And so he also picks the teams, and this is one of those things, and I think that Reindeer Games is full of them, where it's like, you can say, "What a mistake Cody made. What a doofus. He sealed his own fate." But the reality is that, like, this wasn't a terrible strategy. Like
At
like,
all.
this has been a winning strategy for him in the past, and, getting together, like, the best competitors that he can think of, even beyond the fact that, like, he has all of, like, the most physical players on his team. They're also none of them are, like, bad at puzzles or any like, none of them have,
Mhm.
like, explicit weaknesses. So he's just basically going all in on the idea that his team wins.
Yeah.
There was another way to do it, which is to do a more, like, sort of socially engineered team. Maybe put somebody like and he thought about it clearly in the
Mhm.
episode, put somebody like you on his team, or maybe like, you know, if Derek was on this cast, he probably would have tried to find a way to put Cody on the other team and then have Cody throw the comp for him,
Yeah.
or something, or maybe like the Caleb equivalent would have been doing that. But like, there were other ways, but like, in a game like this where you really just don't know what's coming,
Mhm.
there's not really like a concretely right decision. There might be some
Yeah.
actually wrong ones. Like, don't you know? Like even if he put himself on a team full of like the quote unquote worst competitors, at least now he's in a spot where like if he's in the showdown with them, he's against the quote
Odds are
unquote
pretty
worst
good.
competitors. But even
Right.
then, it's like,
And
but you don't even know that you're going in the showdown with your team. It could be anything.
you have no
So,
idea. You have no
yeah,
idea what the
I think it's an
configuration's
okay
gonna be.
call.
What I also think is interesting is that you don't know what the reward, I call it a punishment. You win, right? But you don't know
Mhm,
what the pro, con, whatever of winning is going to be. And especially at that point in the game, it was only day 2. It's pretty straightforward. Okay, 2 people going down into the showdown. We don't know there's gonna be twists on that every day. Um, so yeah, I mean, like, okay, let's say I do, let me put myself in his position, and let's say I build a team, and I build a team where I am social engineering it, where my target is on my team, and I've split it and tried to get somebody to throw on the other side, right? Let's say I did have somebody throw on the other side. And then there is a advantage disadvantage where now I have to put my 2 allies in danger, and now I'm losing an ally.
Right.
There was no planning for this. I think now that we've had a season of Big Brother Reindeer Games, people can predict for this in the
If
future
they do the
now
same things again.
if they do the same things again. But there is no predicting, especially this first season. We were like, whoa, how is this happening? Like, there is no general mechanic of the game that you can try to figure out how to break. You just walk into it blind every single time.
Mhm.
Even like the back
S
door could be engineered because you knew how a veto happens, you knew how HOH and the entire game happens. When you don't have that landscape, you can't plan ahead unless you just get lucky.
Right, and 'cause, like, knowing how this worked, you could do the, like, have somebody throw on the other team, or you could even, if you wanted to, be like, "Listen, I'm gonna take one for the team. I'm gonna put 3 of my allies on the other side, and then put myself with all of the rest over here. I'll throw, and then you guys, with the majority, make sure I'm the one that doesn't go in."
Mhm.
Like, you could do that if you knew the exact rule set, but you didn't know the exact
Nope.
rule set.
Had no
You can't
idea.
really do that.
Even you
Um
could just assume, well, 2 people go into the showdown every time, right? So,
mm,
what if I started promising, "Hey, you 2 throw this comp and I'll save the 2 of you,"
yep.
and now I can only pick 1 of the 4. Like, there's no gaming it unless you know
Yeah.
what the game is.
So, the 2 teams, and this is a huge win for you. This disadvantage, yes, the gift. The was that was a ridiculous. I'm sure this has been talked about to you before. What a ridiculous gift! Like it looks
It
it
looks
looks like it
scripted.
was a stunt on a movie.
It does. It's a one of those just crazy things. We celebrated that win like we won the damn Super Bowl. Like we were uncontrollable. Um, something. So each structure had to stand for 3 seconds before you started
Mhm,
the next one. So you had to run. You had to finish your structure, your tree. Go back, hit the button. We all had to wait on the mat. There was a 3 second delay. The light would light up green, and then the next person could go. So when you see me at the very end, I'm saying, on the mat, on the mat, on the mat. We hit the button. We are waiting. Those 3 seconds felt like 20 minutes. And it was just all of that intensity exploding in one moment. We lost our minds. Danielle's crying, fist pumping. Brittany jumps into Josh's arms. I'm throwing snow everywhere. And then we have to reset and go back. We have to do more lines. They have to reveal what the I don't know, reward, whatever you want to call this was of winning was. And then I just said, they're like, okay, and now you all walk back to the house. And as we're on the way walking back, I go, I'm gonna do a somersault. And I go and I just do a somersault and I throw the snow and I get up and I felt clunky and weird. I was like, there's no way that's making anything. That was just the sloppiest thing I've ever done in my life. And then we hit this slow-mo on the episode. And I'm like, whoa. My top two Big Brother moment, winning and that one somersault.
mhm. The slow-mo cameras were a good choice, I think. They really
I
worked.
hope, I really hope that they can commit to that in the regular season. I know it breaks the space of Big Brother a little bit because the cameras are so far away. They're behind mirrors all the time. Like we don't have camera people in our faces to film Big Brother, but
Mhm.
having that camera for the reindeer games, I think it just elevated the whole show so much. I think they'll get an Emmy if they bring that camera in.
Ooh. I don't know about that, but
We'll start the push now. We'll see what happens.
So, obviously huge win, and this is where Cody leaves, but you do have a choice to make first. I do want like, let's just quickly imagine a world where you lose that competition.
Sure.
Who do you think the other team saves of your group
Who's on there? X, Nicole, Cody, and
and Frankie?
Frankie. Brittany gets saved.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that makes
Brittany
sense.
definitely gets saved out of that group. Are you kidding me? Um, I didn't realize how close Frankie, Britney, and Nicole were working together. I think that's what I'm a little frustrated with in the edit towards the end game. Like, it really looks like it's those 3 versus me, X, and Josh, and
Josh,
whoever's
yeah.
interchanging at that point. But there was a lot more intermingling. But if we're going by that leaning, Britney definitely gets saved, and it's me, Josh, and Danielle down in the showdown. Oof.
Yeah. I mean, it seemed like the like Brittany and Nicole weren't that close to Cody and Frankie yet at that point.
Mhm.
But I do still like I think that was the moment that Nicole got closer to Cody
Yeah.
again. I mean, she had been there, but like that in the edit at least, they were like, "Oh, Nicole was chosen by him to be on his team." She really appreciated that and like solidified that. And then probably like I think the Britney stuff came like after that in terms of like getting as close as she was. But
Mhm.
I think they pick Britney and it accelerates the process.
Definitely.
And then yeah, the three of you in that comp. Do you have any idea how you would have done?
Oh, man, I think I would have done really well on everything but the teddy bear. For some reason, I think the
Mhm.
teddy bear is the thing that took everyone the longest when you actually look at it. The hardest one was the telescope,
Yeah.
legs. I like toys with legs with no arms, but Cody got that one very quickly on his own. And no shade to Cody, but he's not known for doing well with like puzzles or riddles specifically. So we knew this would be pretty hard for him when we first saw it. But he got that really quickly on his own. It took X a while to get that one, but once he got it, Frankie immediately was right behind him because he saw him pick it up. But the teddy bear took everybody a long, long, long time to figure out. Ultimately, I don't know. I think I probably would have been the first one to finish. I probably would have been in X's position if I was down there. But I mean, I'm a player looking at this thing saying I would do just fine in that. So
Yeah.
who knows?
I mean, I think, like, given, like, Josh's performance in other things, and I think and I could be wrong because I'm not an avid challenge watcher, but I don't think he has, like, the best reputation for puzzles and stuff and, like, riddles in the challenge.
I
I
will
think
get
he's
to
getting
that.
better. When I watched the CBS season 2, he was like, "I've been working real hard on it." So,
Aw. I love him to
I
death.
think
When we talk about his elimination, I will get into to his challenge abilities,
okay.
his competitive abilities.
So we maybe lose Josh there in that spot, and then from that point, it's honestly a crapshoot. You get back to the wheel, and then who knows who loses that. But either way, big win. You have to decide. You have to decide who's going to be saved, and it's a pretty obvious choice.
Yes.
Except it kind of forces you to show some cards.
Not only does it force me to show cards, it forces me to potentially ruin a relationship that I was very reliant on.
Hmm.
Um, X did a lot of I put X in a position to do a lot of hard work for me,
Hmm.
and that is not easy to do. Well, I'm really grateful to X for being very protective of me, first of all, and, like, he could have very easily aborted mission and been like, "Screw this, I'm tired of going down to Santa Showdown, I'm working with Frankie, I'm getting you out, Taylor," and he never did that. He's very, very loyal to me, and my social game, my entire game would not have been what it was had he not remained loyal and steadfast. So, all that being said, the entire game, I had to toe a very specific line of how many times do I risk him? How many times do I reveal my cards? What does it take to rebuild the trust in that relationship so it's beneficial to my game? Um, and on top of that, I mean, look, we were in a four-person alliance with Xavier, 3 people in that alliance on the team that makes the decision of who goes down, and we don't save that one person. That is crazy. That is a crazy thing, even if the decision is an obvious one. And this is when I understood how crucial my position and Danielle's position in the house was.
Hmm.
Because there's a moment when Danielle wavered, and this is in front of Brittany, all of us deliberating. She goes, "Well, what if we do keep X?" And I knew that that was a verbal announcement so that Josh could see her trying to stand up for X and so that she could go back to X and say, "Well, I said we should keep you, But
Mhm.
Taylor was quiet, or even because I did say it, like Taylor said, consider who you want to go to the showdown with. So it doesn't sound like she wants to go to the showdown with you, Taylor. And the
Mhm.
next day, I saw Danielle and X sitting on that couch chatting it up. But you know who else saw that? Britney. Britney, who
Mhm.
was in the meeting, who was rubbed the wrong way by Danielle trying to protect X, and who saw Danielle and X getting closer and closer. So, I mean, all props to Danielle. Like, she was making the right moves. And I think in a regular, longer season of Big Brother, it would have paid off really well for her.
Mhm.
But I peeped her game. I saw what she was doing, and I'm glad I was smart enough to navigate it in a way that worked out for me.
Yeah, it seems like a big part of Reindeer Games strategy is balancing, loyalty versus strategy. And
Mhm.
that's it's designed to be that way in a good way where like they're constantly putting you in positions where the better move is to betray somebody. And so like I think in terms of social game and in terms of like strategic positioning, the trick to the game is can you make the right strategic moves without giving up your social or strategic position? Can you get those people back on board after you've
Mhm.
betrayed them? And
Yeah.
it seems like that you were always able to do that. Outside of Cody, who just had to go. Uh,
Right.
you turn on X here theoretically, but then he comes back. Then you turn on Nicole, who comes back, and then X again, who comes back again. Uh,
Great
so
for
there's a
me.
there's a balancing act, and like if you go too deep in one direction, you might be cutting yourself off. And I think
Yeah.
that that's interesting.
It's hard. It's very hard figuring out what aspects of my game do I risk and where's the reward and how much is it going to piss off majority of the people here. Like you have to have your eyes ahead and behind you at the same time while you're dangling your ally to the wolves and like letting the wolves kind of nip at their toes and then you reel them in last minute and you say, okay, but we're still in the car, right? I still got you. And that person is expected to be like, oh, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to do that. And now I'm stronger and we're still in it together when you could very easily say, get out of this car. You go to the wolves next to. So I was
Mhm.
glad I was never in that position, but it's very hard to balance that. Like, how do I risk you and reel you back in? And you said be very, very proactive about it.
From my perspective, it felt like the logic was so solid for this decision, at least, where it was like, obviously, if we put in Nicole, we're just you know, to some degree, we might be giving Frankie and Cody a free pass when, like, this
Mm-hmm.
is our best chance to get them out, and we saw that they just put this whole team together. We had to put you in. We because one of them had to go, and you had a 66% chance of staying. Like, the logic is very good, but obviously, there's still a lot of, like, emotion involved, but, like,
Oh,
it had
yeah.
to help some, right?
Oh, I mean, it was not only that, but also having two other people that were in the alliance that made that decision alongside me. It was so much
Mhm.
harder when it was just me making that decision later on in the game. That was not a good time. But when you have other people that are agreeing enough with you in that decision, backing you up on it, it's like, okay, as a team, we got your back because we trust you. And everyone in this alliance has a job to do, and this is your job, Xavier. So come on back. I think my favorite part of that episode, and even in the moment, living in real time, is when we're all our alliance, the four of us, were in the Coco room. And X is like, so y'all trying to get rid of me? Like, what was the conversation? And X is basically like, I'm not happy I have to do this. And Danielle goes, I need you to get in the game. Like, he's like, I need you to focus. Like, shut up and focus. And I'm living this in real time. I was like, oh, all right now. Well, I got your back, buddy. We'll see you on the other side. I'm rooting for you. Just come on back.
Mhm.
Just
Oh, boy.
cutthroat. I love her.
So, Cody's gone, the risk pays off, and now you're basically just, like, chilling. Like, your position is super solid now because you do get Xavier back, and you're basically covered at every potential angle. Uh, it's at that point that you win the naughty and nice challenge, which should mean, "Oh, crap, now she has to make a decision and ruin something," but you get
Mm.
some volunteers. Uh, when you won, did you know that you were, like, fine? Like, what was the thought process behind winning, or did you just kind of feel like, "Oh, I got this?"
I was very excited about winning, and then I opened the door of the DR, and before I even sat down, I was like, "I should have thrown this to Josh. I should have thrown it to Josh. I should have thrown it to Josh. Like, why did I have to win? This was so stupid of me." And I don't think this was shown in the episode. Again, it was a week ago, and my mind is so scatterbrained now. Um, but in the DR, I literally say, "I should have thrown this to Josh, and now because I didn't throw it to him, I have to give this to him." Like, that's the
Mhm,
only thing that makes sense for my game. And I was like, I either give it to him or I give it to X. And if I give it to X, we're right back to what we were talking about. I am further just digging a hole with this person that I really need to be a strong soldier for me in this game. Now, simultaneously, while I was in the DR, X immediately pulled Josh into the Coco room and said, one of us has to take this on for her. So X and I are on the same wavelength in totally different positions. When I come out of the DR, X and I go and talk first in the snow globe room. It's so weird calling these rooms this. We go and we talk in the snow globe room, and X goes, "Don't worry, I got your back. I've been setting this up for you. I gamed this all out for you. Give it to me or Josh." And this is what was tricky for me. I'm like, do I play Big Brother or do I play reindeer games? And I wanted to tell him that's exactly what I was thinking. We're on the same page. But I was in a Big Brother mindset thinking maybe it's better if I let him believe that he made this on his own. He came to this conclusion or
mhm,
decision on his own. And so that was just bad thinking on my part because I think long term in a Big Brother game, that would have been a great thing to say for a jury vote or for a final speech, something like that. But when it comes to reindeer games, you have to be in control and ownership of your decisions so that you don't want people to take credit for those decisions in reindeer games. It just doesn't make sense. So Josh comes in and he's like, put it on me. And I do the same thing with Josh. I go, oh my God, thank you so much for sharing that with me. Thank you. I will consider that. Meanwhile, it's a done deal. I already made that decision the second I won. But I think this is my own personal frustration. Like, I wish that I outwardly told both of them, here's my decision. This is where I'm thinking. How about we do this? Oh, we're on the same page. Great. I love that. And so it's for any future player of reindeer games. Own your shit with your alliance in the moment because it's going to be so much more beneficial when people understand how you are working with them instead of being sneaky. And I hope that makes sense. But eh, that's just like a small note I have on my own game and how I communicated with the people I was aligned with. But ultimately, everything that I needed to happen in that moment happened how it needed to happen.
So I think my understanding of what you're saying is that by allowing them to feel like they did that on their own and that you weren't going to force that upon them, even though you were, what that did for you is that it put you in a position where when you then did have to force something upon them, it was more out of the blue and harder for them to accept.
Definitely. Definitely. And that's how the
Okay.
game is designed. You
Mhm,
have to own these hard decisions so that when you are deeper in the game and you form these bonds and people feel like they've done something for you, they don't feel like now you're forcing this upon me when I had your back the whole time. No, no, no. You
mhm.
have to own those harder choices earlier and for more time in the game.
Right. That makes sense, although I do still see that there's still maybe some circumstances where there's a benefit to retaining loyalty as long as possible until the cord gets cut.
Yeah,
But the thing is, and I think you're right about this, that, like, reindeer games, there's not really a cord to be cut, because all you can do is just put them into 1 or 2 or 3 potential cords. Um, so like, you could betray somebody, throw them in, and then they come right back, and so it's like, I think probably it is sort of counterintuitive, but I do see the point that, like, strengthening it through, like, trial by fire, is maybe a better call overall, but it probably depends on the person in the relationship. Um, because
definitely.
some
Yeah.
people will be like, the second they don't feel in control, they will find somebody that will let them feel in control.
Mhm.
But then others are more accepting. And I think that, yeah, I think that in this spot, you were probably right that both X and Josh, I think, are both more on the accepting side than the other side.
Right. That's like my
Interesting
own
insight.
small note.
Yeah. Okay, so you pick Josh. That makes the most sense. Gives Xavier the best chance to win the Jingle Bell Brawl. But ultimately, the Jingle Bell Brawl was not really Xavier's
Mm-mm.
thing. And in fact, it was actually more
Mm-mm.
Josh's thing from what we saw in the edit.
Josh
Not that the
crushed it.
disadvantage mattered.
Quelle surprise. What a shock. The disadvantage did nothing. Oh, look at that. Let me tell you how much this disadvantage did absolutely nothing. So the big disadvantage was that the puzzle key for Josh was blocked for 5 minutes. Tell me how that matters when the puzzle pieces are already in alignment in the puzzle in front of us. So, okay, I just can't look over here and see the puzzle's already done, laying here in front of me. I just have to put the blocks up in order. So whether
Mhm.
it falls while I'm picking the pieces up as I'm going or I have the key, it doesn't matter. I've already seen it. And you just have to look at the puzzle pieces themselves to get it together. Now, Xavier and I are the only two people that had done this challenge.
Mhm.
Nicole hosted it on her season, but
Mhm.
she hadn't done it before. So the second that we walk into this Jingle Bell Brawl, both of us said, "Oh, hell no." We were like, "No, no, someone else. It's somebody else's challenge." Danielle sitting on my left or standing on my left. I'm in the middle. X is on my right, and everybody else is on the other side. And X and I are both like, "This sucks. It's going to take us 2 hours. I hate this challenge. And what the hell do you mean it's a puzzle too?" What? When I tell you, when Nicole finished it the first time, she finished it 3 times. She finished it once and got it wrong. She had a puzzle piece missing or, like, wrong in the middle somewhere. She
Mhm.
finished it twice. The second time is when the eyes were flipped. We lost our shit. We said,
I
"Can we
still
all
couldn't tell
just"
the difference
I
watching it.
know. So there's a little corner of each piece. They were just mirrored. In the little
Mhm.
corner, you could see a chocolate piece, and then the other one, you could see a gumdrop piece.
Mm.
So you had to just flip them both so they would complete the rest of the chocolate and the gumdrop on the outside puzzle, which we just when I tell you we were begging, "Hey, what if we all just agree that Nicole won? Please, can we end this? Please, we can't do it anymore." There's actually the moment when Frankie almost finished his puzzle. And this is like the uniqueness of being there and having all the production in the room with us. We could hear screams from headsets that the PAs were wearing. We hear Frankie go, "No!" And you just hear, "Ah!" And X, Danielle and I are like, "Frankie, was that your last piece?" And he's like, "Yeah, I'm fine. I'm fine." We were like, "Wow, this must be a really interesting one, huh?" Because, like, just the screams, there were no reactions from the actual people in the room. We could hear everybody who was behind the scenes in other rooms and offices reacting to that moment. So it's hell. If you ever do this challenge, just know you're about to go through hell. It's miserable. It's awful.
For my own curiosity, I was trying to get placements for each player, and I loosely had Nicole first, Frankie second, Josh third, and then, like, it seemed like Brittany was doing well, but I couldn't see where you, X, or Danielle were. Do you have any idea?
I would say it was I was probably equivalent to Britney. I
Okay.
would say that. So it was probably um Nicole, Frankie, and depending on the timing of the fall, Nicole, Frankie, Nicole, Josh.
Mhm.
And then Brittany and I would say we're pretty equivalent, and then X, and then Danielle. Danielle had the worst time with the puzzle. She she was near tears. I've never seen her in a state like that before. She was like, "What is this?" She's like, "I think my puzzle's wrong." She's like, "Is there a piece missing? Something's not right." She pulled me over at the end. She goes, "Taylor, my puzzle's not right. What's wrong with it?" I walked over. I said, "Flip this piece over this way," and she just walked away. We were done. I hate that. I hate that so much. It's awful when it's regular. It is miserable when it's a puzzle. So congratulations,
Mhm.
Nicole. She ate that up. Come on, nurse's
Yeah.
hands.
So Nicole wins, and now it's the dreaded hamster wheel. And
Oh.
so from what I've heard, you looked at the wheel and you were all just
Woo!
like, "Oh, we're done. This is a wheel of death."
Shaking in our boots, knees knocking. Literally, hands were quivering, voices were quivering, knees were legitimately knocking. People were terrified. And I remember Derek's, the rules when he first read it or first gave us the hint at the end of the brawl. He said, this is something where you'll all be begging to be the first in. So do you send a friend or a foe? And people are gaming it, trying to game it. Then we are later told we will see it before we decide who goes in. And so I remember Britney and Danielle both went to Nicole and said, I think let's see it. But they actually volunteered to potentially be the first ones to go in because that person had the most amount of time. And I said, I don't want to go in. I was like, I don't want to go in. I don't want to touch it. I don't want to see it. No, nothing at all like that. And around this point, my alliance with Danielle, Brittany, no, Danielle, Josh, and X was moving pretty much in lockstep because I think we really felt like we had to reel X back in, even though Danielle was gaming more with X and still had Brittany. Like, this is when things are really starting to fall apart, but an actual plan was more in motion with that aspect of my alliances. So we all kind of had our eyes on Brittany. But that's interesting to know that now, knowing how close Danielle and Brittany were, because really at that point, Danielle still would have protected Brittany no matter what. But Brittany was
Mhm.
feeling a little iffy about Danielle without Danielle knowing that, ooh, this game was fun. So those two say that they'd be willing to go in first. We go out, we see the hamster wheel, and all hell breaks loose. Nicole looks at Brittany. Brittany is shaking and goes, I would not like to go in. I would really not like to go in. She looks at Danielle. Danielle's like, mm-mm, mm-mm. She looks at me. I go, ooh, wow. Wow, that's a tough choice you got to make. She's looking around, looks at Josh. Josh walks the other direction, walks away. So now she has Frankie and X to look at. And X is like, I've been through these showdowns so many times. I already know, like, eye's gonna be on me. So production basically says, okay, like, we gotta take some photos. So if you guys could be quiet for a second, we're gonna get these stills done. And X is like, are we gonna have time to pitch ourselves or anything like that? He gets no answer. He goes, okay, well, I just want to say right here in front of everybody, Nicole, when we had our conversation earlier, I just asked that you don't put me in first. And yeah, I'm just asking you to keep your word. And I'm saying in front of everybody. And I'm like, oh, okay, we got speeches this season. This is gonna be good. I was certain it would make the edit because it was good. He called her out, put her on blast. I mean, didn't put her on blast, but like, come on, you're calling somebody else out. You're mentioning a specific conversation. It has to make the edit. Doesn't make the edit. So I'm frustrated because it was good. It was a good moment. But then she puts Frankie in, and literally this whole hamster wheel doesn't go by strategy. It just goes by fear. It goes
Yep.
by whoever the person thought would be either able to make it out or the next one to go out. So
Mhm.
Frankie does it, crushes it in 2 minutes and however many seconds with 5 minutes on the clock. X goes in second, admittedly annoyed, even though he said, don't put me in first. But anyway, he goes in, nearly doesn't make it out, comes back in and tells everybody it took me, 4 minutes, 19 seconds or something? Like, he had seconds
Mhm.
left.
Yep.
You didn't even see me. You didn't even see my conversation with X. I walk in there and he goes, it's a death sentence. I had seconds left. You can't go in. It's Brittany. I said, all right. And I walked out. I have no further questions. Bye.
Yeah, I mean, don't be for very good reasons. Don't be caught talking to Xavier for very long when he's about to put in one of your
No.
other allies.
Nope. Makes no sense to me. So I get in, I get out real quick. I ask no questions. I have no names, nothing at all. And especially like I was probably the next best person up to go in there with the time in 3 minutes and 30 seconds. Let's be honest, I would have finished that.
Mhm.
And honestly, in 2 minutes, 30 seconds, I probably would have finished it too, which is why I volunteered. I was nervous that after Britney came in and put somebody else in, now you're only down to me and Josh to throw down. And if there's
Mhm.
anybody that you're banking can do it in a shorter amount of time, or you really want to send somebody home, it's probably going to look like I'm a better option out of everybody. Like at
Yeah.
that point, both Josh and I were socially positioned really well. And you have to consider who's going to beat you in reindeer games. I think a lot of people would have started thinking, Taylor might beat me in reindeer games. So, like I said, a lot of that positioning, the one position in the house socially was between Danielle and I. And ultimately, the game just blew up right when it needed to for her. Well, for me, but unfortunately against her.
Mhm.
That was tough.
Yeah, I mean, so this is it was interesting to me, that you all saw it as a death sentence, even, like, from the get-go. Because, for one, like, Nicole has done this before. She's been in a wheel for the Final Four veto
Mhm.
for All-Stars, and, like, yeah, she couldn't keep up with Cody, but, like, she did pretty well.
Yeah.
Like, I'm pretty sure she beat, like, Christmas and Enzo. Um, so, like, being small clearly is not, like, a huge disadvantage for this, and she should
Mhm.
know that. It is a disadvantage, but it's not like she can't do it, or
Right.
somebody small can't do it. And then also, like, from my perspective, and I get it, like, you're in the moment, like, it's different, but, like, from my perspective, they're not gonna put a competition where the whole thing is that, like, it lowers by a
The
minute
first
every
one.
time and then have the first person fail it. Like, yes, it happened
Yeah.
to Caitlyn that one time, but, like, I sure,
Taran,
they've learned their lesson.
when I tell you, we all were on the floor laughing immediately at how ridiculous we were. I could hear Josh's laugh down the hallway that whole night. And I talked to him the next morning. He goes, Taylor, I was in the shower talking about how I'm going to look like the world's biggest pussy because I was afraid to go into a hamster wheel. And I heard him laughing at himself the whole night. I was laughing hysterically at myself when I got alone. I was like, I wish I should have just gone in first. I wish I just said, you know what? Screw it. I'm going in first. That makes sense. But I think it was the maze component that scared us. Because
Mhm,
look, let's be very honest here. You go in and they're explaining the rules of a competition and you're looking at that competition. You're like, okay, so where's the maze in this? How do you figure this out? And when they said that you have to spin the wheel to do the maze, now we're all freaking out because we're like, okay, I see the pattern of this maze when it's standing still. But if I'm spinning it upside down and the clock is ticking, can I really figure that out? And there's so
mhm.
many notches in there. What happens if it gets stuck in a notch? That's what happened to Xavier. That's why it took him so long.
Right.
He would have been
Mhm.
done in 2 minutes, but he got caught in one of the notches and he had to keep spinning it until it got free and so he could finish the puzzle. It's a legitimate fear. And when you have the opportunity to rely on your social game instead of your physical game to get you out of it, we see where I'll land on that one.
Yeah. Yeah, no, yeah, I think I definitely see that, like, the maze portion of it, especially because you've probably most of you have done some sort of similar sort of either table or, like, pulley
Totally.
maze before, and you know it can be pretty finicky, so,
Yeah.
um, yeah, I see that for sure, but I still think I would wanna I'd so yeah, let me go first, please. There's
Yep.
no
Yep.
way they let the first person go.
Yeah, you
It would ruin the
again, you're
episode.
right. I really wish that we, as the women, said the first 3 girls, weakest to strongest go, and then we put like, the second strongest guy that we think is in the house in, and that person
Mhm.
will go. And I would have pushed for that second strongest guy to be Frankie. Like, "What do you mean Xavier is the second strongest?" "No, it's Frankie. He needs to go now."
Yeah. So I think I agree. So watching Danielle with 2 minutes 30, which by the way, I don't know if you listen to our podcast, but it was very funny because in the first episode, Danielle made a comment about Caitlyn and
Yes.
how they were doing better than Caitlyn. And then the amount of time Caitlyn had to do her puzzle, 2 minutes 30 seconds.
2:30. Yeah.
Yeah.
Not Caitlin's karma coming.
But she was so close, and Derek confirmed that she was extremely close to finishing.
When she
And
walked in, we asked how close she was to finishing. She said, "Oh, I was nowhere near done." And then we watched the episode and now Derek confirming she was that close to finishing. If she
Mhm.
just believed in herself more and, like, she would have had it, and then my nightmare would have I probably would have gone. I probably would have been gone this episode, I think.
Yeah, yeah, I
Unless I
mean, it's
really pushed for Josh.
mhm. I mean, it would've been smarter for her to choose you over Josh, I think. But yeah, who knows what she would've done. Um, yeah, so I think ultimately, like, I think you're right to volunteer at that point because I think you do probably win it,
Mhm.
and Danielle very nearly did, and then you would have been really in trouble if she had.
Mhm.
It was a tricky spot. I think it's again, like, the bigger mistake was just not going in earlier, when, it was possible that, almost everyone might go. It's
Yep.
like, "Oh, that's a tough place to be." So, interesting stuff there, and really, like, if you think about it, there was this big dramatic thing. If you have a choice, if you do go in, Brittany chooses you, you finish it, you're now picking between
Hmm.
Danielle and Josh.
Mm. I think, when I went into this, I told myself I'm not playing this game for the internet.
Mhm.
And so if I were to play the game for the internet, I would have saved Danielle and thrown Josh down. Um, but I think at this point, seeing how close Danielle and Xavier were getting and seeing Brittany be more vocal about her concerns about that and knowing what I wanted my final four to look like, I would have put Danielle in. And I'm really happy I didn't have to make that decision. I'm so
Yeah.
happy I didn't have to do that. Woo! Oh my god, the clips that would float around of me saying, "I really wanna play like Danielle. I just really admire her. She's the whole reason why I said yes to the game." Me with, "Danielle, I'm sorry, I'm sending you to the hamster wheel." "No, no, 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 no. No, thank you."
Oh, boy. So, yeah, I mean, it seems to me like Danielle was screwed either way, at that point.
At that point, yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone's biggest mistake was not just going in as early as possible,
I
and,
told you, a fear-driven comp. We were all scared shitless. Literally, there was a line to the toilet, like, legitimately.
I talked about this on the podcast, like, I think that, like, this on the feeds would have been an all-time Big Brother moment, like, just
Yeah,
being able to experience it with you guys in real time, not having any idea who might succeed or fail, would have been, like, really, really exciting, and I think the episode was really exciting, but, like, there are those of us that can't help but look at how much time the episode has in left
yeah.
in the thing, and so,
I would do the same thing.
that does kind of, like, impact it a little bit, but I do really like this concept, and I think that, like, the fact that it did have you all scrambling, both socially, strategically, competitively, fearfully, like,
Yeah.
it felt like it was chaos, and I think that, like, this is definitely a concept that could be used in the real show, and I think it can be executed even better in an episode if it's done at the beginning of an episode, for instance.
Yeah, I mean, I'll tell you, you all didn't get the live feeds of this, but you know who did? Production. Um, I'm like, I wanna say it so badly, but, the production always gets to see all the cameras, and the cameras are still set up as if, the live feeds are always on. And so when we got out at the end of that day, people kept telling us, like, "That is the craziest Big Brother we've ever seen." Like, that was the most entertaining Big Brother we've ever seen. Oh my god, watching you all do that, watching you all wait, being able to see the competition, watching you all wait to hear either the laugh or the jingle bells. They're like, "That was the most riveting Big Brother we've ever seen, most entertaining Big Brother we've ever seen." And I'm just like, if people had access to that on live feeds, I think it would be more iconic than the Big Brother 10 fight. Like, it would have been truly a cemented legendary moment, but, again, it's new stuff and new experiments, and I'm excited to see if they take notes and apply this to regular Big Brother.
Yeah. Okay, so Danielle's gone. I mean, you know emotional moment, I think,
Yeah.
for everyone, whether you were watching or whether you were there, whether you wanted her gone or you
Yeah.
didn't, I think. I really loved, this is my favorite Xavier moment of the show was him, talking about, she's the reason. Like, she's the reason
Mm.
I'm here, she's the reason Taylor's here. And, to see her go is so brutal. But it was just so cool to see Danielle. I mean, just I think the biggest hook of the show for me was always just, like, Taylor and Danielle and Britney and, all of these they're gonna be playing together in a game? Like, that's
Yeah.
wild.
It was so cool. Even I think the very first episode, Danielle walks down and she goes to Xavier, I mean, she goes, "Whoa, whoa." And I'm like, "Uh-uh, whoa." Like, this is crazy. And, in a perfect world, we work together and we're like, a fan sent Xavier a picture of a Black Panther with like the mom and Shuri, the sister, and just like someone said, watching the three of you play reindeer games is like seeing the three of them. And it just like there are moments where you get overwhelmed by the legacy of this silly little reality show on CBS, but this experience means so much to so many people. The influence of Danielle and even before her, Monica Bailey, right?
Mhm,
Then Danielle and seeing Xavier carry over the torch and then having me carry over the torch specifically for Black women. I'm new to this franchise. I'm what, a year and a half in, 2 years in still. Like I'm very green, but the legacy will never not overwhelm me. It's powerful, it's weighted. I think it shows what reality TV can do to impact the lives of other people. So to see these people not just as fixtures or predecessors or even friends, but now competitors. Like I got to share this experience with them. I'm I am so, so lucky to have had that opportunity, and it was so cool every day to walk in that house and see their faces and play the game with them. So, I hate she had to go out, but what a cool thing to have played with her. That was really
mhm,
awesome.
yeah. And what a way to go out, dramatic fashion.
Dramatic fashion, there was a little bit of a tussle right before that didn't make the edit,
Oh, what
but
was the
hey.
tussle?
So when Danielle first walks in, she hugs everybody, and you do
Mhm,
see her hug like a half hug Brittany with her eyes kind of rolled, which I loved. It was sad, but I loved it. And then right when she picks up her gift and before she walks out the door, we're all, "We love you, we love you, we love you." We give her hugs. Brittany goes to give her a hug, and Danielle pulls back. Oops, I hit the mic. Pulls back, and she goes, uh, "I am so pissed. You have no idea. I am so pissed." And I'm like, "Drama. Oh, drama." And Brittany's like, "No, like I watched you. Like I love you. You're amazing." And she's like, "Uh-huh. Uh-huh. Uh-huh." And she just walks out and we're all like, "We love you, legend. Woo. We love you so much." And she goes up to the Santa's office HOH and does her goodbye. But I know that was hard for Brittany because now I know just how locked in they were as each other's number one and that betrayal. Like, I wish they showed it. Oh, I wish they showed it because it was so good. But it's a short show, and that's not always how you want to end the show. Excuse me. So it was fun. We had a good time.
It's super interesting for me, from Britney's perspective, in terms of, her time playing Big Brother. She's the recipient of 2 very famous betrayals, the brigade and then the
Mhm.
funeral. And she's
Mhm.
never really, had to or been in a position to, really betray someone in that way.
Yeah.
And it's like, to have Danielle Reyes be like, "No, screw you," must have been like, "No!"
Of all the people. You're like, it couldn't have been like Cam, like it couldn't have been someone real fresh that like I barely know their game and I don't have all this history or knowledge of. Like, no, it had to be the person that I look up to that means so much. She even, X and I kind of had a moment in the Coco room, just literally what X said. I said something similar in my DR, like he's the reason, she's the reason, all this stuff. So we went to the Coco room just to have a moment, and Brittany, oh, bless her heart, and I mean that in the most sincere way, tears in her eyes came to both of us and said, "I'm so sorry if I ruined anything that you all were working towards, this was totally game. I understand how it's so much bigger for all of you." And I was like, "Brittany, I love you so much." He and the cookout did the cookout, so we don't have to do that shit ever again. Like, I was like, the cookout happened so that we don't have to have any more cookouts. Like, that is done,
Yeah, he
and
won
this
the
is
cookout.
game. He won the cookout. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's my favorite conversation of this entire show. Um, and then Nicole's DR about me, but we'll get to that. But yeah,
Um,
I just love Britney so much. That was a crazy, crazy day.
I haven't had a chance to, like, really dive into the exit press, but, like, I feel like I've heard they're good now, like, it's fine.
Yeah. Oh, I haven't seen any animosity since the second we
Yeah.
got out the house. So I think
I love that from Danielle. That's exactly what I want from a player, is just, like, absolute genuine and, like, frustration and upset that you got betrayed when you're there in the moment on the show, and then after,
yeah.
like, "Yeah, it was a game, I get it."
Yeah.
Like, that's the perfect combination. It makes great TV even though they didn't show it, but then also shows the maturity of being able to understand it's a game.
Yeah, and it's not even, like, forced we're trying to make good TV because that's when you make bad TV. So,
Yeah.
like, it was awesome. It was really, really cool.
Okay. Day 4, um
Ah. The duos day.
yes,
So I wanna break this down a little bit for you real quick. So
sure.
we filmed this 3 days in a row. We had
Okay.
2 off days,
Okay.
but they were really, like, catch up DR days and press. So all of the stuff that you saw on social media, we did that, and then some DRs to catch up with because we were wrapping our days at, like, 9 o'clock at night. So a lot of DRs that we did, we kinda had to go back and yada yada.
When you
So I
say
say that to
press,
say
like, were you doing interviews?
no, not a single interview. It was just social media, headshots,
Okay.
and more DRs.
Right.
So we have those 2 days in between the game. So 3 days of game, 2 days of, like, everything else they need from us, and then 3 days of game. So
Mhm.
between the hamster wheel and the duos day, I have nothing but time alone to spin and spin and spin and think, what the hell is coming for us on day 4? And going into day 4, I firmly believed that we were going to be in duos because of how the numbers broke down. And I thought
Mhm.
that whoever lost of the remaining duos, so there were 4 people that would be losers. I thought that the winning duo would pick one person to save, like happened with the teams day. And I
Mhm.
thought that the 3 people remaining would go down to Santa Showdown, and I thought only one person would come back,
Right.
right? So then I thought that the reindeer
You
games
thought
would
2
be
people would be
2 days.
eliminated.
I thought 2 people would be eliminated and one person would come back, and I thought that that would be the final 4, and we would have 2 days of reindeer games.
Okay.
So this is how I'm going into this day gaming hard. I'm like, I've had 2 days. I look crazy. I've had 2 days to figure this out, you guys. This is how it's gonna go. And I'm scaring everyone. I'm like, 2 people are leaving today. The games are 2 days long. So I'm planting the seed in everyone's mind. I'm like, who do we want to go today? Who do you want to do the games with? And then it was just hell in a different way.
Yeah. Ostensibly, like, there's 2 ways to look at it. There's or maybe a couple of maybe 3 ways to look at it, but, like, you have, Frankie, Brittany, and Nicole now. You have you, Josh, and X, but then you also have the women, and the women feels like the strongest thing. Maybe not always in the edit, but, like, in terms of
Mhm.
just what makes logical sense. Not only like, the women is the group of people that has the most reason to continue to be aligned and loyal to each other because,
Yep.
you know, you have the best theoretical chance against each other than against the guys, outside of maybe Josh. And so you are still in a good position. Like, it's still a very good position. Losing Danielle is not like the worst thing. It wasn't the best thing. But it does still put you in a spot where you have X and Josh basically to yourself now. And you also have Brittany and Nicole, and they collectively only have one guy in Frankie. And
Mhm.
so you're still better positioned. But the real question is like, because basically you have X and Josh, Brittany and Nicole locked. They're not coming for you at all in any capacity. But where does Frankie stand, I guess, in reality and from your perspective at that time?
Yeah, so I asked Frankie on, yeah, I asked Frankie on premiere day when did he know that I was coming for him? And he goes, "It was not until this day that he
Mhm.
realized that I was targeting him." Because, we made a decision together. It's our decision, so this is what we're doing.
It wasn't until the call he made or you made. Yeah.
Exactly, exactly. And I'd been gunning for Frankie for a while at this point, but do I think that Frankie is actually coming for me? No, I don't think Frankie sees me as a threat. I don't think Frankie sees me as a target. And so I was curious why he ultimately chose me to be his partner in the brawl.
Mhm.
And I'm like, you could go against anybody. Excuse me. If you think that the duo that loses is going into the showdown, you're clearly picking me because you think you have a shot to beat me.
Mhm.
But honestly, he told me he was really looking at it as a way to protect his other two girls, which made sense to me. He was working more closely with them than I was working with him. And he was really banking on the fact that we would win. He was
Yep.
he was taking a Cody approach to it. He was like, I don't see there being a world where you and I are paired where we don't actually win this thing. And if we have to go, I'm saying this is what he said to me in the real world. He was like, if we did have to go against each other, he was like, honestly, I think it was kind of evenly matched. I disagree. I think he would have crushed me in whatever showdown we would have ended up in. But he really stands by the fact that he thinks it was equally matched and that because of that, it was stronger for us to go in together and win together and just secure our safety that way. I was a little annoyed because I wanted him to go that day, but I'll
Mhm.
take safety for another day over getting rid of my biggest target.
I think you do make the most logical sense from his perspective. If he like, I'm assuming that Frankie's perspective on the game at this point is I've got Nicole and Brittany as my 2 closest women, but I still have Taylor as, like, the women's group.
Mhm.
And, you know, I'm placating X and Josh as much as possible, but they're my targets.
Right.
Um, and so from Frankie's perspective, obviously, he doesn't wanna have to compete against X or Josh himself, uh, but he also doesn't wanna take out his closest allies, Nicole or Brittany. So, like,
Mhm.
in terms of, like, learning from the lesson that Cody sort of helped him learn from the previous time that you picked teams, it makes the most sense. I want to go up against a woman if I have to go into a showdown,
Mhm.
but I don't want it to be my 2 closest women, so the
Right.
the next best pick is Taylor. I don't want Taylor to go. Ideally, we win, but, if I have to send a woman home, it's Taylor over Nicole or Brittany. I think
Mhm.
that makes like, instantly when
Totally.
we saw that he was picking a partner, I was like, "It has to be Taylor. I think it has to be
It
Taylor."
just made sense.
So then it was up to, Nicole, Brittany, Josh, and Xavier to split the
Oh,
rest of the
man.
teams. This is when we hear Brittany say this.
Just because, like, women. You know what I mean?
So I made the case in the podcast. I did feel like it made more sense for me for the women to work together in this comp, in the Jingle Bell Brawl, for Brittany and Nicole
Ooh.
to work together because the way that I was seeing it, the showdowns were more physical
Mhm.
on the whole than the Jingle Bell Brawls were. So like if I'm banking my life on one of the challenges, I'd prefer for that
Okay.
challenge to be the Jingle Bell Brawl than the showdown.
Sure.
So
I
like
see that.
I think teaming up with Brittany and or Nicole, if I'm Brittany or Nicole, I think I have the best shot to win with the both of us in the Jingle Bell Brawl. I think we still have a great chance to win. And then worst case
Mhm.
scenario, I go to a showdown and I don't auto lose a physical challenge because we're equally matched.
Mhm.
And so that would have been my perspective, but that was ultimately wrong because that wasn't how it worked.
No.
So and that's again why it's just like, you know, it's so hard to actively choose the correct strategic decision because
Right.
from my perspective, that's like it makes a lot of logical sense. I'm going off of like averages. I'm going off of like what would I prefer to happen here. But if just one piece of your calculation is wrong, like say, well, in this case, the Jingle Bell Brawl is more physical and the
Mhm.
Showdown is mental. Like, okay, well, that screws it up. Or in this case, it's not the 2 of you going against each other. You just guaranteed that you're going against a guy.
Yep. Yep, literally would have set yourself up for that trap. I remember Frankie and I had to watch Nicole and Britney, and we had all 4 of them try to figure out what teams. And Frankie and I are both, whatever our interests were, we're both like, please split up, please split up. Like I need both of these girls to split up. And I mean, for all my alliances, it made sense for the guys and girls to split themselves evenly.
Mhm.
Either way, I was covered. But
Yeah.
it was really hard to watch them go back and forth, try to strong arm one another, try to really stick to the guns in another aspect. And meanwhile, Frankie and I are like, the clear decision is to split up. Please just split up. Keep in mind, I'm thinking 3 people go down and 2 people leave. So I'm
Right.
like, like we're freaking out over here. So we get to the brawl, and I remember right before we started, Frankie said, I'm going to focus on this puzzle. You keep an eye on the 2 teams. And he
Mhm.
announced, he said, whatever to everybody, he said, whoever is ahead, you're getting frozen, whatever that is.
Mhm.
And right before we started, he said, Taylor, keep your eye out on both teams. And you just tell me which one to freeze, and I'll yell freeze. I said, okay, great.
Right.
And as soon as I saw X and Nicole get into a groove, I said, Frankie, say the word. And literally it just cut them off in their tracks and it stopped all the momentum because it was literally right when they were starting to pick up momentum, get in a groove and really see it. I said, stop them immediately.
Mhm. So I'm curious about this. I guess I have a couple of questions. One would be how
Yeah.
close did they ultimately come from your perspective? But the second one, just in terms of the freezing, I was thinking of it as like, okay, how bad of a disadvantage is this given that it's a puzzle?
Mm-hmm.
Like, if I'm frozen in a puzzle, I'm just gonna use that time to plot out exactly what I want, where I want my pieces to go. So it might not be that bad, but it depends on the kind of puzzle and what you're able to see.
Yeah.
So how do you feel about that?
So that's probably what I would have tried to do. You literally had, and we didn't know this, they literally had to freeze exactly as they were. So if my
Yeah.
back is to the puzzle, I I'm
Could you have
SOL.
waited for them to be in a really, like, Squid Game squat position? Uh,
But
like
even then, it wasn't clear that they had to freeze
yeah.
legitimately in place. Like production literally came over and they were like, no, no, in place, freeze right now, go back to the position you were in and freeze just like that. We were like, oh, wow, that's interesting. But yeah, if I had the opportunity to freeze in another position, I would have been doing the exact same thing, the same way that we were all looking at the maze when we were looking at the hamster wheel. Like, okay, how do you figure out the maze? Oh, wait, it's gonna be circular. Everyone's always trying to deconstruct these things before they actually start.
Mhm.
Um, but do I think that actually would have helped with this puzzle? I don't think so.
Yeah.
There were white pieces that would indicate what the bottom was
Mhm.
for each of these pieces. So I think it was like 6 long, 3 across, 4 high, or some configuration of that. And they had white pieces on the bottom of all of the pieces that actually touched the bottom of the puzzle. So we had to maneuver that, figure it out. What if you have puzzle pieces that you haven't flipped over and you can't see if there's a white piece at the bottom there? Like the freezing, even though I would have liked to think it would have helped, personally, I would have taken that approach. It wouldn't have helped. The pieces were too
Yeah.
big and too complex and clunky for you to actually figure that out. So, yeah, you think you're in a groove and you have no choice but to sit there, and there are no clues that you can pick up that are actually gonna help you solve that puzzle.
Yeah. So how close do you feel like they came? Because my recollection of the edit was that it didn't seem like it was that close,
Not that
ultimately.
close, no. No, I think if we're talking as far as layers go, the top layer was the easiest to figure out.
Mhm.
And I would say that X and Nicole had maybe the middle, like halfway of the middle layer figured out. And Frankie and I were slamming that last piece on and jumping into the sled or whatever it was, sled.
Yeah.
It was done. It was a done deal.
How much would you credit? Because like in the edit, it was like I'm just gonna let Frankie do it. Was it basically just Frankie that solved it, or did you like how much do you think?
So I maintain that I am bad at puzzles. Like, I think that's why the last episode is so emotional for me. And we'll get to that when we get there. But like I maintain that I'm bad at puzzles, but there are a few key pieces that I actually did figure out that made like figuring out one piece and where it went made getting the next 2 or 3 pieces super easy in. And I was the one
Mhm.
that got those kind of key pieces in the places where they needed to be. I'm not going to take credit for this puzzle by any means. Like Frankie took it and ran with it, but I was really clutch in specific aspects. And Frankie's husband had him practicing on like a 3D or 4D uh simulator
Yeah,
building these block puzzles out. So like
that's great.
he knows how to maneuver these significantly way more than I ever could. But I will say I am really proud of myself for getting like those key little spots and doing a lot of the heavy lifting there. So heavy
Mhm.
lifting as in literally lifting the heavy puzzle pieces and handing them to him.
Yeah.
So it was cool. I was not by any means just the muscle behind it, but I can't
Mhm.
act like I was in the front seat by any means.
Yeah. So you and Frankie win. You have to choose one from each team. And it is unfortunate, I think, for you, just the draw here.
Oh,
That you can't protect Josh. Um, and that means that like I mean, basically given how this went, like, is there anybody that would have lost to Josh? Like maybe Brittany, but, like, he was on her team, so they couldn't have gone
yeah,
against each other.
yeah,
So, this was just kind of a death sentence for Josh that Frankie picked that color or whatever,
yeah.
because Frankie was always
I was
picking,
literally I put my hand in and I was like, "Red, red, red, red. Please red, please red, please red, please red." It's green. It's green. Of course it's green. Sick to my stomach. Clearly, as you can see in the whole thing, I'm just pissed the whole time.
mm, yeah. You did say this at the beginning of the episode, which was obviously foreshadowing.
When you're in good with everybody, there's gonna have to be a time where you are not good with everybody.
Wisdom.
Yeah, I'm known for being a sage. Oh my god, Taylor, she's so good with her words. Did you see her speech in 24? Really brought it out this time, man.
It reminded me of, I don't know if I can get to it quick enough, but there was a great, Riley quote,
Oh no.
from Big Brother 25.
Anyone who knows me knows who I am.
Yeah. Um, um, so this is
We had
tough for
long
you. This is
days, okay? Long days, all right. So yeah.
this is a brutal choice. And Frankie immediately, as you pointed out, goes, "This is our decision, Taylor. X and Josh, right?"
And look, from his perspective, we are protecting the women. We were all in on the
Mhm,
girls. So I get like, yeah, it does seem like it is our decision. This is what we've been fighting for. This is the game we've been playing the whole time. X and Josh. And I'm like, yeah, hmm, sure. And then he runs off and he goes to take his individual meetings, and I take my individual meetings. And the key for me, outside of always knowing that I was going to be protecting X, but the key for me was getting Xavier to agree that he would be committed to taking Frankie on head on.
mhm,
And there's actually a conversation that we had the day before in the game where I asked him, we were in the bathroom, and I said, "So who do you think can take out Frankie?" And he said, "I think you're looking at the 2 people." I wish they kept that in the show. I so wish they kept that in the show. Um, But, like, I was laser focused on getting Frankie out at all costs, and I needed X to say this out loud, not just by happenstance, "Oh, if I'm there, then, that's what I'll do." I needed him to be committed to getting Frankie out of the game, and I knew that once he said that, if I had to be in a position where I had to throw him down again, I could always pull it out and say, "Well, you said that you would go against Frankie, and it has to be sooner rather than later. I'm sorry." So, it made it easier to protect him, one, to rebuild that relationship. Like, I can't just keep throwing him to the wolves and expect him to remain loyal. And two, I got what I needed game-wise out of him to make sure that happened. So,
Mhm.
Nicole had to go down. And honestly, from the second that they started the showdown, when I saw Josh had that approach where he wrapped, just like Monty did, where he
Yep.
wrapped his entire arm around the candy cane. For those who aren't familiar, this is the exact same challenge or comp that I did part 1 HOH,
Mhm.
for part 1 final HOH on my season. And the second Josh wrapped his entire arms around this candy cane, I was like, that's the worst thing he could do. He's going to gas out. He's going to use all his muscles, and it's just not going to work for him. Now, the argument is easier to make if we look at the case study of season 24 with that comp, because
Mhm.
this season, they both went down at the same time. I swear, I don't know if there's like a joystick where they operate it or if it's pre-programmed, but we hit that 1 hour mark and they were like, all right, wrap it up, wrap it
Yeah.
up, hit them with a hard one. And they both went flying. I think Josh is just a bigger guy, so he hit the ground harder and faster.
See, this is what they need for the tiny veto. They need, like, little magnets in the pieces that they can activate to make it easier
Yeah.
after an hour.
Yes, please. Please. I don't ever want to see a tiny veto ever again in my life.
So yeah, I mean, yeah, we talked about that in 24. I think that, yeah, you don't give yourself enough like room for like shock
Shock absorb.
absorbing,
Yes.
if you have your arms like this. And so if you do, it ends up taxing, I think, your grip a lot more. And when you do peel
Mhm.
off, like you have nowhere to go and you just fly right
Mhm.
off.
You're
But
gone.
like I do think in general, having a lot of upper body strength is going to really help you in this competition,
Yeah.
because you're relying on it a lot to hold yourself there. I did like Nicole's strategy of kind of like walking around it,
It was
but
genius.
obviously there's risk to that too, especially once it starts getting faster.
Mhm.
But yeah, it was interesting to see this play out. I would have loved to see Brittany take this one on, given her history with
Giant orifices in the game.
giant orifices. Yeah.
What else? There's after this happened, I remember, I as soon as Josh did that grip, I was like, "Oh, he's a goner. Bye, buddy." And I just locked in on Nicole. I was like, "I know Nicole's gonna come back, so I need her to really believe that I'm rooting for her and cheering for her." So I cheered for her the whole time, rooted for her the whole time. And I remember seeing her she kept looking over. Frankie was right next to me. She kept looking over at us. And I'm making sure I am verbally saying to Frankie, like, all the things that she's doing right. I'm making sure that he really believes that I am rooting for her to come back, because I know she is at this point. And after everything, when we got back to the house, Frankie and I were next to each other, and Nicole came over and said, "I kept making eye contact with you, Frankie. I saw you cheering for me. I saw you just were locked in on me." And Frankie said specifically to her, "Taylor was too. Taylor was just locked in on you as much as I was." And I was like, "Thank you, Frankie. Like, we're back in this. We were in this together. Social game coming through again."
I love that. Yeah. I mean, I mean, especially like, I assume your relationship with Josh is good enough that like, if he does end up pulling that out, it's like, yeah, Josh, of course. Like,
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, look,
um,
Nicole was, she was fighting for her life on that thing, and
mhm.
no, like, there would not have been a question with Josh at all.
So I went back and forth a lot on this decision, in terms of like, should it be X? Should it be Nicole? And I think like, the thing is, like we've talked about, there's just so much unknown. You don't know what the competition is. You don't know what the
Mhm.
next round is going to look like. At this point, you don't even know how Reindeer Games works for the
No
finals.
clue.
Like, Is it gonna be is there gonna be a social component? Is there gonna be just a tournament? Is it just gonna, like, there's so many, like, how valuable is an ally? Do you need a stronger competitor theoretically to be in there, or do you want them out? Can you even get Xavier out if you do put him down, in whatever competition this is gonna be coming up? Um, and so for me, and I didn't think of this until after the episode, but, like, for me, the thing was, okay, the if the primary goal is keeping Josh, because Josh is the most valuable person for you, then
Mhm.
you don't wanna put X in the hopes that Josh can beat Nicole. And I think we can probably agree that Xavier beats Josh in that
Yes.
competition. So, like, results oriented wise, I think clearly it was the right call given the how things shook out, and, like, the fact that you were able to get both Brittany and Nicole back on board to take out Frankie afterward. Um,
Mhm.
but I do think that, like, there is a lot of reason to think that it's just straight up the call in the moment as well. From my perspective, from the perspective of, like, I gotta keep Josh, and
Yeah.
you have thrown X in before already. And so,
It would
there's
have
the
broken
question of,
that
like,
relationship. It would have totally
right,
broken that relationship at that point, and that I could not risk doing that again at that point in the game.
right. So, like, and the worry there is, does that screw you over at some point? And it might have, right? Like, X ultimately chooses who he faces in reindeer games.
Mhm.
If he's not loyal to you, do you see a world where he chooses you? Because, I mean, I think he might have had a better chance against you in the clockwork thing, given, yeah, I mean, you didn't exactly do great at it
No.
the first time you
I
tried it.
know. It does help that it would be my second time,
Yes, I was
but
thinking
I
about that because
actually
for a second, I thought that both of them were gonna be the clockwork thing, and I was like, "Okay, so Taylor came, I think, in last place, in her season doing this."
Alyssa was still in there. I was second to last.
Alyssa was in there, yes. I think I had both you and Alyssa close enough that I couldn't tell who was ahead. Um, but I was like, "But she has
Second to last.
experience with it, so that might mean she's good at it now." Who knows? But then you didn't
Yeah,
take
well,
it.
I remember seeing the pattern on this clock, and it was essentially the exact same mirror imaged. And
Mhm.
so I think and it's funny actually looking at that, we can really get into it, but the approach that X took to start out is the exact same approach that I took when I started out on my clock on my season. And so I knew that was wrong and I knew how to
Yeah.
start it. I probably would have beat him in the clock.
Oh, well, there you go. I
Yeah.
did think of that, like, given how Xavier performed on that specific one, it did feel like, who could he have beat? And I'm not sure it was anyone. So in a weird
I don't think
way, winning the naughty and nice, like, broke his game because I think he had a much better shot at the second challenge than the
so.
first one.
Mhm. Mhm. Crazy, huh?
Uh, it's the randomness. But we are jumping ahead a little bit.
Yeah.
Obviously, Nicole sticks around. I love hearing that about, like, rooting for her. That's very fun. We come back to the next episode, and Nicole and Brittany are both like, "Yeah, it sucks that Taylor did that, but we still have to work with her. We still have to get Frankie out." Oh, I also did forget to talk
Ooh, what you
about
got?
where did I put this? Oh, you know what? I had to reset some things. But, we have to play the full circle moment earlier in the season.
Oh,
She's a girl's
yeah.
girl. She's a girl's girl. She said that.
She's a girl's girl.
You wanna talk about I mean, not a redemption arc, but I mean, this whole season was just, like, all of the things that I said in my preseason 24 interviews of how I wanted to play the game and who I wanted to work with, and, the way I got dragged up and down all of 24 to re-enter with 0 expectations and 0 care in the world and have very specific beats hit the entire time of who I got to work with, what people said about me. Like you can't script it. If you scripted it, it would seem like a cheesy poorly written Hallmark movie, but it was just so organic and it felt amazing. And I'm just really grateful for this whole experience because wow, she's a girl's
Yeah.
girl. Even though she had 2 guys in her back pocket. I wish I named that alliance Guys Girl. I did what I could. I did what I could to
So
put the women first.
yeah, so you do get you get them back on board, and it wasn't the ideal result from the competition, given that Nicole beats Josh, but you still make the best of it here in terms of your positioning. And we see that Nicole wins the naughty and nice, which was what was this naughty and nice challenge? Like we talked about, this was literally just like put the shape in the hole, and
Yeah.
who just finds the shape first.
Oh, you have no idea. We thought that this now I'm gonna make some people mad at me now. We thought that this was gonna be very complicated. There was like
Mhm.
I was memorizing this key, like, okay, gum drop, long, gum drop, long, gum. Like it's I'm trying to memorize the exact pattern because I'm thinking every key is gonna be so similar.
Mhm.
Even like the reindeer gang, whatever it was, the South Pole reindeer gang, those had very similar things that would trip you up. So
Mhm.
coming off of that naughty or nice, we're like, okay, pay attention to the details, everybody. Taran, I shit you not. There was only one key that had 4 notches at the bottom, like the one on the thing, and it was in the bathroom. Nicole went
In plain
up,
sight.
looked at it in plain sight, went into the bathroom. But I was coming downstairs, going into the bathroom. She'd already left, had the key, put it up there when turning the thing open. Like, we were like, ain't no way. Ain't no way. We looked around just to see. We looked around at the keys that were left in the house. None of them were anything close. Like there were no red herrings. It was just the most obvious in plain sight one. And that's the same thing for the painting. Like X and I went straight to the painting. X immediately saw it and rang in.
Mhm.
All that extra filler stuff is some extra filler stuff because those both of those naughty or nice challenges were done quickly.
Yeah.
So quickly that we had to keep running around. Like, well, that happened real fast. So could you just keep looking around, guys? We're like,
We
okay.
need some footage. Uh, um, so she has an obvious choice. Xavier has to sit out of the thing.
Mhm.
Obviously she's picking Xavier or Frankie. There's no reason to burn Frankie when Xavier's sitting right there. Um,
Right.
so the first of 2 Jingle Bell brawls is the tasting challenge, which you
Mhm.
win.
Yay! A solo win. Yay! This one was crazy. I remember seeing it on Celebrity 3.
Mhm.
I remember Todd won, right? I was like, what type of
You and Todd.
nasty person? Yeah. I was like, what type of nasty person has to know what all these things taste like buried between all these other flavors? I guess it's me. I'm the nasty person.
Yep.
It was crazy. And you know what's funny? The flavors themselves were not that bad. Which sounds
Mhm.
crazy because I had squid, clam blended in one with cocktail sauce. It was never the actual flavors, it was just the texture. The
Yeah.
craziest one was the fast food one. It was I think they had chicken nuggets, a burger, filet o fish, Coke, and something else all blended in there. You could literally like in different rounds taste specifically every single thing. So like I could taste the chicken nuggets, and I could taste the burger, then I could literally taste the Coca-Cola, and then just like I say in my stupid confessional, like something fishy came through.
Something tastes fishy.
Well, what's funny is that I actually guessed filet o fish or fish fillet is what they had to say in the round right before it for
Mm.
yeah, I forget what it was, whatever the nog was, but it was something just like very bland and creamy that actually removed flavor from whatever it was. And I was like, maybe that's fish fillet because it's fried and bland. And then once I got that answer wrong, and the very next one was fish fillet, I was like, okay, done. Wrap it up, hang it up. And then I had the worst decision to make of the entire game.
Yeah. So you're picking somebody to take with
Ugh.
you, and, you know, obviously, there's basically 3 choices, right? Like, theoretically, you could take Xavier,
Mhm.
and, I think a lot of people that were, critical of the previous decision were like, "Ah, she's just never gonna get rid of Xavier. She's just too loyal." And, like, clearly that wasn't the case. So I assume, like, this is I mean, it's never gonna be Xavier. Like, it doesn't really make sense to pick Xavier here, especially, like, for multiple reasons. One, he's a good competitor that you don't wanna have to face in reindeer games if you can help
Mhm.
it. And 2, that leaves Frankie without Xavier to have to fight, which
Thank
gives
you.
Frankie a better chance of also making it to reindeer
Thank you. Hello.
games.
I
So
like I said, I got him to agree to take out Frankie. So I am going to keep you in the space to take out Frankie for as long as possible before we are at the last case, worst case scenario, which we ended up in anyway.
yeah. I was curious about this. So, like, I'd run through the
Mhm.
stats of all the players before the season. And so during
Oh
the
man.
season, I also did some stats, and this was actually surprising because most of you were fairly equal. You did well. Like, your average placement was like 42%. This was prior to the finale. Was
Sure.
42%, which was the second highest after Frankie's 52%. Um, but
In reindeer
Xavier
games or on our
in
seasons?
just reindeer games.
Wow, okay. Okay, yeah.
Um, Xavier very like, because he won showdowns. The problem was he won very little else. And
Mm.
in the competitions he didn't win, he didn't place very high. Xavier
Wow.
actually had by far the worst comp performance on this scale, of anyone. He
Sure.
had his average placement score was 17%. He only beat 17% of the people he fought he competed against. Um,
What?
and he ends up losing to Nicole, so, like, add, that means, hold on, I don't think that changes the percentage, but, although he did win, 1, so he won hold on, we can quickly on the fly change this. He beat 3 people to win the Naughty or Nice. Or no, he
Sure.
beat 4 people to win the Naughty or Nice. And then he, or sorry, no, he beat 3 people to win the Naughty or Nice. And then he lost to 1. So, we'll make this 13, and then, we'll make this 64 or 63. And so his new score is 21%. There you go. The Naughty or
Okay.
Nice challenge helped, but this is still about half as much as Nicole, Brittany, or you.
Wow. That's fascinating.
It is interesting because, like, I mean, the thing about the stats is that they don't really matter. Like, the thing
Right,
is
it's like,
that
they don't reflect the complexities of each of these comps, like,
yeah,
puzzles, physicality, all those different things, but it is interesting to see the numbers up against what is stereotypically a comp beast, who is stereotypically underestimated, and see, hey, no, actually, if we look at these numbers, there's higher chances and better reasons to stick with or to get rid of some of these other people.
yeah, like, you see Xavier win, like, 3 showdowns, and you're like, "Man, this guy's unstoppable." But, like, if you think about it, that means he beat 3 people. And, like, a
Mm,
single Jingle Bell Brawl where you beat 8 people, to win 1 thing is potentially, like, in some ways, like, you had to beat more people to do it, but on the other hand, it was only 1 challenge. So if you were good at that 1
mhm,
challenge, you beat 8 people. And so beating 1 person 3 times theoretically means you might have a wider variety of skills, but you didn't have to beat as many people to showcase those skills. So how good are you at
sure.
them? So it's a very different set of things. You kind of have to look at all of the like options available to you. Um, but it is interesting, and I think that most of the stats for Big Brother competitions, from my perspective, are more an indication of what challenges did you get, more so than, like, who are you as a challenger. And I think that
Mm,
there are, like, exceptions to that on the extreme ends, like somebody like Michael, who just did amazing at everything he competed in, Or, somebody like, sorry, Suri, but like Suri wasn't very good at most of the challenges. So like there are,
Sure.
exceptions at the ends, but like I think for the most part, most people that go into a show like Big Brother are capable of winning all kinds of different competitions. The amount you win tends to be more so what competitions are put in front of you, than are you good at competitions. Um,
Right.
so, that's why I think, again, when we look at the stats, like, okay, there's a certain skill set that is rewarded way more most of the time.
Yeah.
So people with that skill set will have the best percentages, but not necessarily that they're the best percentages for a specific kind of stat. But then in other stats, like Nicole has a better average placement score than Cody, but Cody has
Sure.
won like twice as many comps in like less seasons. Um, so it's like, yeah, it is interesting the different things that you can sort of figure out through these, but they're very bad at being predictive. Although, Frankie was the highest stat person coming in, and he
Because
was
Frankie's
the
good at
highest stat
everything.
person in the show. But interestingly, you were actually the lowest stat person coming in, and you came out second highest. So
That's so funny.
yeah,
Huh. Fucking Big Brother. All right, let's get into this decision that's
yes.
been eating people trying to drag me for.
So
Nicole
you
or
picked
Britney?
Nicole over Britney.
Mhm.
From my perspective, Britney did outperform Nicole in Reindeer Games itself on almost every
Mhm.
metric.
Thank you.
First of all.
Yes.
But,
Yes.
that doesn't necessarily mean anything, but like, they won an equal amount of in fact, Britney won slightly more, theoretically. She had
Mhm.
a higher average placement score, she beat more people, and then also, like, I thought more even, like, more specifically, I thought, "Okay, when Britney is competing against Nicole, Britney placed higher than Nicole 3 times, Nicole placed higher than Britney twice." So, head
Hmm.
to head, Britney has a slight lead. But more importantly, against Xavier, Britney placed higher 5 times, and Nicole placed
Hmm.
higher twice. Against Frankie, Britney placed higher 3 times, and Nicole placed higher twice. So Britney has outperformed every other member of the cast at this
Yeah.
point than Nicole has. And at the end of the day, like, could you have beaten Britney at the final game? Maybe,
Maybe.
she was very good at the tree
Yes.
stacking, and she had great strategy for it. So, like, I don't know, but Nicole was good at the tiny veto, which also has somewhat
Mhm.
similar transferable skills. Um, but would Brittany have beaten Xavier in the clock thing? Probably, but I don't know. Like, there's just so much unknown, and at the end of the day, Brittany and Nicole, there's not a lot of difference between
It
them.
was
They're
like
both
splitting
good.
hairs.
They're both
It was
very
like
good.
splitting hairs. Yeah.
Yeah.
I think so for me, there was 2 really big things and 1 smaller thing. Number 1, and this is what I tweeted about that people are like, "That makes no sense, Taylor. How could you say that?" Um, I needed somebody that I saw would be of somewhat of an equal caliber to me going into the reindeer games that could hold off and Xavier or Frankie if they were to go head to head against them before me.
Mhm.
And so I needed someone who is equally strong as me that I believe I could take out in the end. So that goes to point 2. What makes me think that I could take out Nicole over taking out Brittany? Brittany's strengths directly contrast with my weaknesses. She is
Mhm.
amazing at puzzles. I She crushed that hamster wheel maze. Like all of the things that I believe to be my weaknesses are directly her strengths in the game. And that's not to say that Nicole is not also good at those things, but I didn't believe her to be as strong as Nicole, or sorry, as Brittany. So
Mhm.
again, when it's like it's this close, I have to consider if I am to go directly against one or the other, which one has the skill set to completely knock me off my game. And for me, I believe that to be Britney, not just because of how I saw her perform in these competitions, but also when we were on our lunch breaks. She's doing needlepoint. Like, she's good with her fingers. She's doing very tactile things. She's doing crossword puzzles. She's doing word searches. She's doing Sudoku. Like, she's actively doing different types of puzzles that are training her mind. She's staying very sharp all the time. And so when I see her doing these things, when I hear Frankie saying, Brittany's amazing at puzzles, she's amazing at puzzles. If Frankie is saying that, I know this girl is good at this stuff. So I'm not going to put myself against somebody that I see my direct weakness reflected in as a strength. That didn't make any sense to me. I really believe that if I had a shot with someone who can pull it out against a Frankie or an Xavier, I'm looking more towards Nicole than to Brittany. Long term, like, you can get the job done getting rid of the guys, and I can most likely overpower you in the end as well. So I think for those reasons, I made a smart choice. I think it's really easy. And frankly, I think it is a correct decision having the knowledge. If I had the knowledge of Nicole's previous games, the obvious choice or decision would seem like, well, Nicole has all this experience in these different games, and like, she knows how to hack games to make it work for her, or different comps will suit her more, or she always makes it to the end, and these are reasons why you don't take her to the end with you. But for me, I think, like, I really, really, truly believe that Britney could have been my ultimate kryptonite. And really, I think that it was kind of a little bit of luck. I was basing this on a bracket style game, which ended up happening. And I was ultimately hoping that if there was a puzzle in the end or something like that, I would have enough of a physical lead that would be able to give me enough space to get to that puzzle first and get farther enough and hopefully win. And I think that is reflected in the finale with just how close that last puzzle was. And, I'm glad Nicole got the edit that she got. She deserved it. I will never, ever say anything to take away from that. But it was even closer than the edit ended up showing. So I ultimately, for my game, I made the right choice, and I'm always going to stand by that. So I'm really happy. I'm just very, very proud of myself for making decisions that best reflected and best paid off for myself.
Yeah, and I think that makes a lot of sense. Like, especially, I think you, on the whole, will out physical Brittany or Nicole most of the time. Um, but uh, but they're both like very capable of like keeping up
Yes.
physically,
Yes.
and they're both very good at different kinds of puzzles. And like, I would say Brittany's better at quizzes and riddles, and like, she's very good at like balancing, stacking, and like figuring out strategies. And Nicole is very good at um what would you call this, like the BB comics, like she's good at like noticing differences and seeing patterns.
Mhm.
And like, we saw her do well at Tiny Vito. That was the first time I think I noticed her being like good at stacking stuff. But like,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's like, at the end of the day, there's no way of knowing which of the two of them is gonna be better at any of these things.
Mhm.
And I think you're probably right that, like, your skills more directly contrast with Brittany than they do with Nicole. And I think trying to be like, this was a decision that really, like, the decision that mattered was Xavier or Brittany or Nicole. Like, it was
Yeah.
Xavier or it was either one of them. It didn't really matter. Um, and you picked either one of them. Like, that was the thing. I'm a huge Britney fan. I think most people are, and
Yeah.
I'm sure a lot of people would have loved to have seen, Britney go further. But I don't think that,
Yeah.
like, in terms of that mattering strategically, obviously it doesn't. And even like, I'm also like a huge admirer of Nicole's strategy. I think that
Mhm.
she's very, very good at a lot of things, especially strategically. But like, just because Nicole is good at strategy doesn't mean that, like, it was a mistake to pick her because strategy had nothing to do with the end game.
It
Like,
was done. It was
it's
done at that
just
point.
it's just about comps and therefore mostly about luck of what you get, and how it played out. So yeah, I think trying to attribute too much to that decision is pretty wild. But
I
let's talk
appreciate
about
that.
um you said it was a lot closer than it looked, and this was the big thing that I think you've been teasing. That what do you mean by that?
So we finished. I mean, there's a lot there. There's so much there. And I will say the Reindeer Games, that final part of Reindeer Games, all of it was so fun, but that final part was so much fun,
I
honestly.
liked the standing on the stacked things. That looked fun.
It was so fun. That's the cool thing about Big Brother. Like we all say, you never get a chance to do things like this, but you really just don't. And so it was all around so much fun. But when it comes down to the stacking portion, the very end, where and again, everything I say is not to undermine or take anything away from Nicole. Like she earned that win. She crushed that.
Mhm.
She earned her win to the end. She beat me. Um, but remember, there were 8 pieces in each bag, and there were 4 bags. I had finally got my 3rd bag, and I had all my pieces stacked, and I had 1 piece left on my 3rd bag when Nicole was just starting to rebuild her stack at one point. And
Mhm.
if I had just set that last piece of my 3rd bag, it would have been a done deal because as we saw, the 4th bag were these itty
Yeah,
bitty pieces where you place it, it
it was a
doesn't
gimme.
matter. It
Mhm.
was a gimme. So the game was basically done at that point. Like if I just stacked that last piece on the 3rd bag, it would have been
Yeah, I
like
think
the game was over.
I think it was a mistake to have the 4th bag be a gimme because it ruins a moment like that, where, like, that you're right, you were basically outside of, like, making a massive error, 1 piece away from, like, winning the whole thing, but
Yeah.
I think I can see why it might have been hard to portray it that way because you had a whole bag left, and
Yeah.
and we didn't at the time know that that bag was a gimme. So, like, how do
I
you be
thought it
like,
was
"Oh, this is
I
Taylor
thought it
1
was
piece away
fully
from winning."
something.
Yeah.
Yeah, I fully thought it was a big I thought they were heavy pieces. I thought they were something more intricate that would make the whole thing complicated. Um, so, it's easy for me now to say, I should have just put the piece down." And I think that moment is actually in the edit. I just wish it was illustrated a little bit more of like, this is the last piece before the final bag, and it all comes crumbling down. I think you just see a very tall stack of mine fall, but I'm like, no, like
Mhm.
that was my last piece. But like, I get it though. Like Nicole won and she deserved her win. She's amazing. She crushed it. She readjusted that stack accordingly every time. Like give that girl her flowers. But I think what's frustrating to me about some of the things I've been seeing lately, hi Benji, I know. What's been frustrating to me is this idea that I chose Nicole because I underestimated her, or I chose her because I just didn't know or I didn't value her skill set. It's like, no, I chose her because of those things. And because I was so confident in her skill set and the slight difference between ours, that's why I chose her because I felt like I could take her on in the end, and like I did. I did. It just came down to a one puzzle piece stacking situation. I
Yeah.
mean, I'll never forget. As soon as we ended the whole game, Nicole came up to me and she goes, "I have no idea how you got through that maze, the antler maze." She was like, "I almost just sat down and gave up in the middle of it." So it was a really intense competition. I love how close it was the whole time. I love how fun it was the whole time, and I'm just really glad that we got to see 2 women winners from Michigan come and, like, overcome all the odds and expectations. Seeing everybody else's faces when they saw that X and Frankie were the 2 that got eliminated in the end and we were the last 2 standing, god, what a really, really cool feeling. That was so awesome.
That was cool. Like, bringing people back was worth it just for that moment of,
Yeah.
like, watching all their shocked faces. It's so good.
I think my favorite thing was right after I beat Frankie, I came out of the DR and the brackets were on the screen and it showed, Nicole beat X and I beat Frankie, and you just see Taylor and Nicole in the middle there. Like, that was just such a cool thing to sit on the couch with Nicole and be like, wow, we really crushed this. The two arguably strongest competitors that everyone was afraid of, we are the ones that took them out. It was really
Mhm.
cool.
Can I make a guess at what your favorite Nicole line was about you?
She looks like the prettiest thing you've ever seen.
She's so nice. I had no idea she said that. She didn't even give me a hint or anything that was coming. So I'm just watching this episode, just excited. Like I'm just excited like everybody else. And here comes Nicole with like some of probably the nicest thing that's ever been said about me on television. That was really, really
You
cool.
compete
And
with
I
your hair
hate
down?
I compete with my hair now. Again, like everything from 24 of the villain that is Taylor to now go head to head with a top competitor who also won and say like, hey, this girl is confident and smooth and pretty and nice and it's an honor to play against her. Like that, it's very validating. And I'm just really glad I got to share that space with her. And I know that like she was still breastfeeding and I know that she just had a baby not too long ago. Like she is in a different phase of life and um I don't want to speak too much for her, but there are a lot of moments where she was like, I don't feel like myself, or, my experience is very different from the way I used to be on the show.
Mhm.
I think she even called herself like just like a chubby mom from Michigan. And the way that you see yourself, especially as women, going into these spaces can have so much of an impact on what you believe you can and cannot do and what you're capable of. So I really respect Nicole so much. I respect her game. I don't ever want to see anybody question her ability. I don't ever want to see her question her ability ever again because she crushed this game. I crushed this game. We were both worthy competitors and it's really cool that we both kind of like exist and acknowledge the space that we both take up and can do it simultaneously.
Yeah.
Holy crap!
She's so Michigan.
So okay, there's one more thing I wanted to like touch on, which is that we talked a little bit about it. Like this is sort of an experience for you where you got to sort of be free of the sort of like burden, the box that was put over you. And also no live feed, so you were also now beholden to an edit.
Mm,
And something I know that like we've talked about before is that like, the way that your season played out, so many people saw you as like this from the outside as like sort of like this an image of you that like was not a real realistic version of anybody that could exist, right? And so now it's almost like you're on this show and you're more of like a real person,
yeah.
who gets to like be yourself and like just like, make mistakes at times, do really well at times, you know, be a little villainous even, and take down your faves occasionally. So
Yeah.
what is it like now having this sort of reception as opposed to the previous one?
It's it's nice to be seen as a full human being. All I wanted was to be dynamic and multifaceted from, like I said, preseason interviews. From casting, I just wanted to be multifaceted and dynamic. And I didn't get that opportunity on 24. And because I didn't get that opportunity and because I had to downplay so much, or not even downplay, but just play from the back so
Mhm.
much, a lot of people saw my my hurt feelings or my willingness to extend grace, kindness, however you want to say it, even when I was sad, as um, just like the perfect example of what a person is, and you could never hurt a fly, or you know, it's almost like I was only palatable to some people when I was down. And
Mhm.
now that I'm in the space where I get to fully be in my confidence and be wacky, goofy, silly, stupid, play hard, play stupid, play smart, all of those things, um, that the full breadth of me
Yeah.
is overwhelming for some people. And it's been upsetting because it's really sad to say, it's sad to recognize that there are some people that only are interested in me when I am sad.
Mhm.
But on the flip side, it's been amazing to see so many people say, "Oh my God, you finally get to be in a space where you can be free and like full wingspan and just have fun and play the same game how it should be played," which is all the things that I just mentioned. So, I'm ready, and I've gotten some messages saying, "I'm so disappointed in you, and I liked you better on 24, and I don't like you anymore, and you're so cocky." And I'm like, guys, it's a 6-episode TV show called Big Brother Reindeer Games. Can we please be serious? Like, I haven't killed anybody. I haven't seriously betrayed or harmed anybody. I haven't sent rabid fans to harm anybody else. I just played a game, and everybody that I played with respects that. So it's this interesting balancing act, but it's nice to shed off, or like you get to slough off a lot of the people that only are interested in me when I am mentally unwell. And it's nice
Mhm.
to shed that and be in a space where like I can exist as this full-bodied being.
Right. Yeah. I mean, like, if the cocky accusation is coming by comparing you to Big Brother 24 Taylor, it's like that's an impossible standard to meet. Like, anything beyond that is cocky. Like, wait a minute.
Yeah. Like, okay, if me not crying in a corner or a bed by myself is cocky, then okay, I will take that one. All right.
Yeah.
Call me cocky, baby.
Oh boy. But I genuinely think, I think that, and I'm sure there will be some people that go, no, it's specifically whatever. But I do think that there is probably like an unconscious sort of thing that happens where you do compare the different Taylors that you've seen, and whereas somebody like, say, Frankie, who is, all over the place in the diary room, you talking himself up, being fun Frankie, but like that's what you expect from Frankie, and in fact, this is maybe
Right.
like a toned down version of Frankie.
Yeah.
And so like in comparison to previous Frankie, you're like, yeah, actually, I'm kind of liking Frankie as opposed to previously. Uh, whereas, yeah, like you, the second you do anything, it's like, wait a minute, this is different. This is in the wrong direction. But yeah, good stuff.
So be it. It's great stuff.
Yes.
I'll take second
um,
place and the opportunity to have this full-fledged game over like emotional turmoil any day.
Yes, yeah, and it was very cool getting to see you not only just, like, be able to be yourself, but also just, like, play this game that you clearly have a lot of, like, respect and reverence for, and, like, it's really cool, how much you have become sort of like one of us, and that you were just, like, experiencing this joy of, like, the social strategy games, and it was I'm glad you had this opportunity. I'm glad this exists.
Thank you. I think it's really cool. And even for so many other people who did this, like, Josh coming back into the Big Brother fold and being welcomed and embraced so much, seeing Danielle play again, seeing Britney in the DRs again. Like, it's really, and even, Nicole, a lot of people, I guess, were sour about Nicole and they got to see her work with the women and play the game based on her skill set and be successful. And eh, she knocked out Josh. She knocked out Xavier. She knocked out me. Like, that girl plays Big Brother and should go down as one of the best Big Brother players of all time. Like, this is just a really cool opportunity. And I hope they bring it back either next year or every 2 years, because I think it'll be a really fun way for people who have done well in the game to come back and get their opportunity to shine again. Michael Bruner.
Where was he in Reindeer Games, right? I guess I mean, putting in Michael would have been unfair, I think.
Yeah, putting in Michael would have been all right. Let's just go back to the hotel. Just give him the crown
Everyone put your
already.
letters in Michael's font.
And then he would have won the Jingle Bell Brawl or the
Yeah,
whatever,
yeah.
stand the showdown. Like, you can't get rid of him. Someone snap his cord again, quick.
All right. Anything else? Anything else that you haven't mentioned that you want to make sure is in here?
No, I got it all. I just, I beat Frankie.
You beat Frankie.
Got the job done myself. So I'm just really happy with this whole experience. And I'm glad you enjoyed it too, Taran. I'm glad you and everybody else watching had a good time watching this.
Yeah. All right. Well, our semi deepish shallow dive was a good 3 hours here. So
Well, half of the first one. So
yeah. Just about half, actually. Yeah, we're about there. If you haven't checked out the first one, make sure you go do that. It's a great time, and it's one of the top performing videos on Rob as a podcast website or channel, YouTube channel.
Wow.
I think it's only 5K behind the Tony Winners at War Deep Dive. So if we can get on that.
5K. All right. Let me go tweet this out real quick.
But Taylor, thank you so much for doing this.
Yeah. Thanks for watching and analyzing our games and being an amazing advocate. And I'm glad that this was a nice little reprise from you slaving over the live feeds all the time.
Yeah, I called the show a palate cleanser. It was really after
That would make sense.
PB25. Yeah.
Yeah. Wash, rinse, repeat. The palate cleanser, like the water in my crackers after those nasty smoothies. The nogs.
There was one question because people have been debating, and maybe Nicole has answered this, and maybe she is better at answering this. But like, people were wondering, where did the bruises come from on Nicole's legs?
So Nicole's legs, I'm not so sure. It would not shock me if the bruises came from the candy canes.
That was my thought. Yeah.
I was not in the room. You want to talk about cocky? I was not in the room when Nicole finished the Christmas tree, the mistletoe grabbing. So it wouldn't shock me if she like bumped herself a few more times on the way down. But for me, my bruise was directly from the Christmas tree. I jumped for the mistletoe. Nicole got a better shot at her jump, but I had to turn around and jump just like that for mine. And I swung out forward, and my butt went just full cheek, full swing on a point. So it's like I'm still there's a knot on my butt right now, and it's like black in the middle and purple all the way around.
Oh.
It's so bad. It is the worst.
Were those
Big
hard?
Brother
They looked
bruise.
soft.
There were 9 stacking pieces. 8 of them were hard, and 1 was soft. So depending on where you put the soft one, that's what made it wobbly.
Okay.
And so Nicole stacked them all by size, but I stacked, 6 by size. The third one was a big soft piece, and then I put the 2 smaller pieces at top so I could climb it easily. Right. And that's how I got out of there pretty quickly.
All right.
Yeah. Rough.
All right. Well, that's it. That's it for the year on Big Brother content.
Let's go.
We'll have some traders soon with Dan Giesling and Janelle. So stay tuned for that. But that's what we got. Taylor, where can people find you if they're looking to see or hear more?
Y'all can keep up with me on Instagram. My handle is the Taylor Mac, MACK. Same handle over on TikTok. And if you want to see my idiotic musings, you can follow me on Twitter at the Tay Mac. And that's all for now, fam.
That's all for now. You can always find me over on Twitch, but that is all we've got. Thank you so much for joining us on a 3-hour journey through Reindeer Games. And I will see all of you next year, I guess.